Mountains of the Pyrenees, and it's also the longest stage of the race at a massive 224 kilometers. It will bring the riders into the country of Andorra to the finishing line here, right on top of Arcalís. We've only ever been here once before. Start in Barcelona, the green jersey of Cavendish, yellow Fabian Cancellara, new mountain to Stefan Ogier, and Alberto Contador saying thank you there to a couple of official well-wishers. Could be a big day for him in the mountains for Astana. The 0 kilometer, and as is by tradition almost, the attack start at the flag.
Well, everybody knew that there's a big possibility on a long stage like this, 224 kilometers, that the break would succeed. And at the first King of the Mountains point at the Côte de Montserrat, this rider from AG2R, Christophe Roblen, was getting himself some maximum points.
Yes, Roblen here, riding his second Tour de France, collecting points from Igor Martinez, the veteran of the breakaway at the moment, Gutierrez, a former time trial champion of Spain. Then we moved on to the Porto Solsona, which was a third category climb, so first four get points here. And a pretty good old tussle, but Christophe Roblen is really enjoying himself here because he goes away early and he holds off the sprinting Liquigas rider Alexander Kuzinski and again Igor Martinez. Now let's go to the action. There they all are. And don't they look colourful when they're in high definition? Because that's how we bring you the pictures here now on Versus.com from the Tour de France. And if you want to know more, please check your listings. Right, well, there's the peloton. The weather is glorious. A little bit chilly for the rise perhaps at the top of the mountain, but light winds today. Started off at 68 degrees Fahrenheit, but it'll finish a little bit warmer than that, I think. The breakaway at the moment is 11.5 minutes ahead. They've gone early. There are 9 of them, and don't forget that the riders are allowing plenty of run today because they're going to... On the pulse on stage 7, we've got 2 riders wired today to check how the hearts are beating. Stefan Ogier, yesterday's new leader in the King of the Mountains, and Barredo, who is a Spanish rider. So he'll be excited anyway, won't he, Paul?
He certainly will. I'll tell you one thing, it's going to be a very high heart rates for a lot of riders when we come up to this final climb of the day, because this climb comes up to 2,240 meters. It is quite cold up here, but fortunately for these riders, if you look at the backdrop there, Phil, there is hardly a cloud in the sky, and that's quite rare in the Pyrenees.
As we look at these stunning pictures, our Geico camera will be in the Garmin team car today. There's a little view for you at the moment, so we can do anything here. We just press buttons. Matt White doesn't even know we're looking at him just now as he builds for what will be a very important day. That's Geico.com, and that's the Geico camera. Right, so we're all set for a great day in the saddle, everybody. Now we'll go up to the leaders. Here they are. Remember, these pictures from now on are live. What happens next? Your guess is as good as ours.
Well, this is the leading group of riders which formed, and they built themselves a lead. At one stage it was just tickling a 13 minutes advantage, but in the last few moments one team has come to the front field to start up all of the pacemaking, and that's the team of Lance Armstrong, and they have set a big pace and reduced that advantage to 11.5 minutes. We're on the first real hors d'oeuvre of the day, the Col de Serra Seca. That summit is at 127 kilometers covered, and that I think is probably where we'll start to see that 11.5 minute gap come tumbling down.
Well, we just saw that caption come up. We were going to give you the list of 9 names, but we saw the name of Lance Armstrong got in the works there, so getting a little bit excited early. He's not in the breakaway, folks. Calm down. There are 9 riders. I'll quickly give you their names. Igor Martinez, Euskel Euskadi, Rinaldo Nocentini of AG2R with a teammate Reblon, Alexander Kuzinski of Liquigas, Jose Ivan Gutierrez of Case Depart, Christophe Kern of Cofidis, Jerome Pino of Quickstep, Bryce Felu of AG2R as well, and Johannes Freulinger of the Milran team. And Felu is Agri-Tubel, not Quickstep or whatever I said. So there is the correct list of riders for you now, and as you can see by the gaps, there's nobody at the moment going to worry the chase. We haven't had too many pictures of the peloton, but whenever we do see them, it's like a deja vu because it's Astana on the front.
Well, Astana obviously want to make a big statement on this first mountain stage, which is why they don't really want to have a leading group of 9 riders clear by the time we come to the start of the climb up to Arcalís. I think they want to have a showdown, and they want to prove to everybody else in this bike race that they are the strongest team in the event and the strongest team in the world. We're roughly 3.5 kilometers to go to the summit of the Col de Serra Seca with these 9 leaders, and as we've said earlier, their advantage 11.5 minutes over the front end of the main field.
Now this is a 5-kilometer climb. They're 1.5 kilometers onto the slopes of the climb. As you can see, the 1 at the top indicates this is a first category climb only an HC like at the finish. Outside category will decide, will be steeper. So it's not very long, this first category climb, but it gets a little bit steep. So, but at the moment, these 9 guys are handling it pretty well. The peloton are getting onto the lower slopes here, and as you can see, narrow roads now as we course out of Spain. We're still in Spain, by the way, as we head towards the Principality of Andorra. The twists and turns, whenever you see the contours go like this, that you know that the topography is lifting the riders closer to the sky. And everybody started today, by the way, including Michael Rogers, who was in trouble yesterday with that crash. George Hincapie also fell, and so did Heinrich Hausler. A number of riders going out. 21 riders were attended to by the doctors in those final kilometres yesterday. But Rogers was the worst hurt. He went to hospital, no bones were broken, and he is in the race.
Yeah, he'll have to try and recover on a day like this, and that's not an easy job in hand. You can see Team Astana on the front end of the main field. There's going to be a lot of work has to be done, Phil, by the team workers on a day like this, especially if the big guns at Kloden, Leipheimer, Contador and Armstrong are going to play with the rest of the field on the final climb of the day. And I feel certain that, judging the way that Johan Bruyneel has acted in the past, his tactic is always to come out strong arm on the first mountain stage, and that's what they want to set up.
That's right, to frighten the pants off his rivals, and the best way to... A little bit of a problem here at the back. This is Nicolas Vaugondy, former champion of France. Routine stop, I hope. Yes, he's on the way again, and he's blocked all the team cars, so they'll take him back up to the main field. Nice move, Nicolas. So as he rejoins the race, the peloton about to start the climb of the Col de Serra Seca, which will take us to 97 kilometers from the finish.
Meters to go to the summit of the climb. They are staying together as a solid pack because they know that once they've gone over the top of this climb, Phil, there's still a fairly long way to go before we start the big final climb of the day, and we meander through the valley roads to get us into the Principality of Andorra. And there is, in fact, almost immediately after this climb, another climb which is only ranked 3rd category, and that is the Puerto de Conte.
Well, before we start the final climb of Alcalís today, we go through the main town of Andorra itself, La Vielle, and then we turn through that very narrow streety town onto the climb of the Alcalís. Here come the scenes now that we'll see while we stay in the Pyrenees. We're still in the Pyrenees tomorrow. We'll leave them the next day. Just 60 miles still to go. I wonder if we can hear anything being said in the team car. Here we go. Oh, he's having lunch, Matt White.
At the top of this climb, guys, you go barrel downhill. It's quite a tricky descent, and then you go immediately up the Cat 3 before we have the long descent with the tunnels, and they're very, very fast. So it's much safer if you can move up a little bit over the top of this Cat 1 for the next Category 3 and a big descent.
Gosh, I always wonder what they'll do if all the team managers say the same things. We'd have a traffic jam on our hands, wouldn't we? But it certainly is a great insight into the race for us. Well, descent onto the Porte d'Alcon is the next one, and then we go through all of those nasty tunnels. There are plenty of them around here because the only way to get through the Pyrenees was to actually bore a hole right through the granite. And for the riders, of course, a change of lighting, and it can really throw you. We have had some horrible crashes in tunnels, but hopefully today there won't be any of those. Look at the scenes here, Paul. As we head up towards the top of the Col de Serra Seca, it's a 5-kilometer climb. Those bikes better move. That's Kuzinski, who's gone over the top ahead of Igor Martinez. No sign of Riblon on this steeper sprint. He's dropped back a little bit. He won the previous... Oh, I beg his pardon. He was ahead there around those motorbikes. So Riblon gets the win there ahead of Kuzinski and Igor Martinez.
Well, he was very attentive there. He was helped by his teammate Nocentini to lead him out up to the summit of that climb. But it was great to see the crowds that have turned out and create the atmosphere on this first big mountain stage of the Tour. But those crowds there, Phil, are nothing compared to what is waiting for the riders here at the summit of the climb in Alcalís, right down towards the end. In fact, a lot of people have come up on the ski seats over the top of the mountain. They've left their cars in the valley below, come up on the telesiège, right up to the top of the mountain above us, and then they've dropped down into the valley. Then they're walking down the hill to find a good venue to sit and enjoy the rest of the afternoon.
Well, that is the way to go, I can assure you that. A friend of mine today, by the way, walked the 20 kilometres from his hotel overnight right to the finishing line here, and it took him 3 hours. How about that? That was an effort, wasn't it?
That was a serious effort, and I think he definitely earned his lunch this afternoon. It is an incredible atmosphere in the mountains. People come out, and those people there, for example, have not necessarily found the easiest seat in the house, but one of the most picturesque.
Well, if the helicopter put them down, I hope he comes back and picks them up, because there doesn't look much of an approach road to the top of that. But what a view as he looks down on the peloton here of the Col de Serra Seca. There's the peloton. It's midway up the climb now. It's climbing it pretty well. It's not a terribly steep climb, but it goes on a bit, and that's why it's got a first category tag. But the peloton paying attention here as they make the steady climb. Christophe Riblin might have done enough to take over the race lead in the King of the Mountains. 11:35 and holding. Still, they're not paying any attention to the breakaway. They're not of any great concern just yet. But that will all turn. Number 126, first Tour de France for him. In fact, 5 of these 9 riders are riding their first Tour de France. Christophe about just over 15 minutes and 40 seconds behind. The big experience is Igor Martinez. He has ridden 6 tours, a lot of them alongside Lance Armstrong. Christophe Riblin has done a couple. Jose Ivan Gutierrez has done 6 as well. And the veteran is Jérôme Pinault, who rides here in the French Quick-Step team. He's a Frenchman, though, on the Belgian Quick-Step team, rather. He's ridden 8 tours.
Well, although Igor Martinez, who's just 2 riders from the back there, Phil, has been a professional since 2002. He's not won a lot of races, but everyone expected him to be a great star, because one of the races that he did win in the early part of his career was the Tour de l'Avenir, or the Tour of the Hopefuls, the riders of the future. And so many people expected him to be one day a Tour de France contender. But today's stage is really very much all about this final climb of the day. Once the riders eventually get themselves into the Principality of Andorra, they face up to, although the final climb, Phil, is only measured at 10 kilometres, I make it a good 20-kilometre climb, because it drags up all the way from Andorra la Vieja to the start of the climb just down in the valley below.
Narrow roads. It's 1 kilometre to the summit now for the peloton. They're still on the Col de la Serra Seca, while the leaders are descending the mountain now, heading to the Porte del Con, which is coming at 87 kilometres from the finish. That's the next challenge and the last one before the final climb to the finish. All the blue jerseys of Astana are down there, pushing the yellow jersey of Fabian Cancellara into the pack. Remember that they are locked together, Armstrong and Cancellara, by that 2200ths of a second. Also 8 minutes since the leaders went over the top.
Yeah, also note, Phil, that Garmin Slipstream have got a good little organisation at the front of that pack as well. Their man Bradley Wiggins is currently lying fairly well up in the overall standing. Starts the day in 6th place. Probably their big hope and the big question today will be Christian van der Velde, who finished 4th overall in the Tour last year. Had a very nasty injury in the Tour of Italy, although I've been impressed by the form that he showed so far to fight back from that injury. But for him, it's also a big question mark today.
A big test, because he's ridden very, very well. He's holding a fairly high position in the overall classification, Christian. So he's just got to prove to himself now the form is coming back after his unfortunate fall very early on in the Giro d'Italia. It was in May when he actually crashed. The race itself finished in June. Well, just looking at the peloton, the leaders they're picking the way down. It's a tortuous descent, and once down there's a little bit of an operation at the back with Jérôme Pinault. Oh, my goodness me. Well, if you want to get in the car, Jerome, you should open the door first.
I think the team manager was actually trying to get onto the bike, because most of these team managers themselves have been professional bike riders. But that just gives you an idea there, Phil, of the agility of a professional bike rider. You've got to be alert all of the time. You've got to be ready to make a move. And Jérôme Pinault there didn't do too badly at all. On this descent here, as we come away from the first category climb, we're probably pushing a speed fairly close to 45, 50 miles an hour, because they're not taking too many risks. It's not really a major technical descent. On some of these descents, though, when you get into a straight line, I've known riders exceed 100 kilometers an hour or 62 miles. 100 kilometers an hour or 62 miles an hour.
Sure, it's not difficult at all if you put your head down, you've got a nice wind behind you, and you're willing to take the risk, but you've got to be careful. These roads are closed, remember, completely. There's no fear of a vehicle coming around the corner, so don't anybody start doing these silly speeds on public highways. There's the peloton, wall to wall, as the Catalan flags fly here, as we're getting set to leave Spain very shortly. Well, there'll be plenty of Spanish over the borders as well, mixing with the Andorrans. Everybody just getting on with the job. Heads bobbing all over the place. They've not crucified themselves on this climb, but that's typical of a first day in the mountains. They're all leaving this for showdown on the Arcolis, which is what we really expect, isn't it?
That's where the big hammer will come down, because it's a very long climb, very steep in certain parts of it as it comes up towards the summit in Arcolis, the ski resort here. It's a dead-end road, by the way. Once you get up here, there's only one way out, and that's straight back down by the way we came here. Although for some of the spectators, they've got a chance of going down in the ski lifts.
Very wise choice of travelling up to the summit today, not bringing your car, I think. We had no choice. I hope we get off the mountain before it gets too dark tonight, as we head over, of course, to the next stage, which finishes in Saint-Giron. Well, there's the peloton. Hard to pick them out sometimes against the public. They're almost sitting on the riders' bikes in places as the magic waters open, and straight away it's Gregory Rast of Team Astana who is bringing the field up the climb. Here's the sacrificial lamb of Astana. It's his job as the domestique to set the pace and look after everybody till he can do it no more, and then he just gets home as best he can.
Phil, just looking at these crowds here at the top of this climb, I wonder what's going through Lance Armstrong's mind. He's seen the crowds on the flat stages, but now, after 4 years away from the Tour de France, he's once again experiencing the atmosphere of the mountains. Yeah. And whatever you think about the flat stages, I enjoy the sprints, I enjoy the dashes for the line. It's really in the mountains. It looks like there's been a little bit of a crash here. The road has been blocked by one or two, probably somebody's fallen down.
Well, number 6 on the left here is Thor Hushovd, who won so well yesterday. Nice gesture at the start this morning. He was congratulated by the guy who won the previous day, the Frenchman Tom Voeckler. Well, these boys have carried on. Don't worry about the stoppage. They'll all get back together again. Wouldn't have surprised me if somebody stopped to give an autograph at this stage, because they haven't really raced this climb.
Nicky Terpstra at the back there in the Milram jersey, the pale blue jersey. He's got bandages on his legs. He was one of the many riders who crashed yesterday on the run into Barcelona. The finish was made quite treacherous by that last little bit of rain that came in.
Just looking here, this is Danilo Napolitano, the sprinter. Clearly doesn't like going uphill. That's the rider in front of the Euskaltel Euskadi man, who is Juan Jose Oroz. Right, folks, don't forget the Cadillac Ride of Your Life sweepstakes is back again today. You go to Versys.com/Ride of Your Life, and then it's your chance to win a visit to the 2010 Tour de France, a Cervelo top-of-the-range bicycle. You'll need the keyword when you sign in today. It is ascent. I think that's a pretty good word for the way the topography is of today's stage, don't you? This is the leading group of 9. They got away very early on, by the way. They weren't 9 at the start, but they quickly formed into 9. And they're going pretty well just now. They're onto the climb of the Porte del Pont, and then no more hills till we climb the big one.
One team dominating the pacemaking at the front.
Well, just looking at this beautiful area, Paul, where the Porte del Comte, where they are now, there's 36 ski slopes here covering a distance of 20 kilometers. And, you know, every time you see the front of this peloton, though, it's always Saxo Bank. It's almost as if, always Astana, right? It's almost as if Saxo Bank have given away the race lead already. We'll see. There's the fast acceleration. These boys in the break have really fought out all the prizes today. And unfortunately, our camera can't get to the front, but I think it's Riblon. Kuzinski has also had a little go. Well, we're going to catch up now.
Martinez third again.
Martinez placed, that's right, he's third. And there is Kuzinski, and the man in front of him is Riblon. So he's had a clean sweep of all the hills so far. Mountains, indeed. Well, whether he get the maximum points on the finish line today at Arcolis, I don't know.
I have a feeling that's not going to be the scenario. That would be a fairy tale ending for this breakaway, but unfortunately when you put big mountains in the way of a breakaway group like this, fairy tales don't very often happen. We're facing up now, Phil, to around about a 20-kilometer descent down into the valley, and then the road winds through the valleys all the way into the capital of Andorra, and that is Andorra la Vieja. There is Kuzinski just shaking his legs a little bit there in the lime green jersey of Liquigas, and that would be, to me, Phil, an indication that these guys who've been in this breakaway they're suffering quite a bit with the terrain.
9 riders trying to hold the rest off. 11:41 the gap. I think it was a back wheel in the end that they slotted in for him. Now it's up to the Maillot Jaune to catch up again. Now the fact that no teammates are with him means pretty much that this was a routine change. He's not in any difficulty. He's just going to pedal his way downhill and back through the cars. You can hear the car horns blowing as the Maillot Jaune of the Tour de France courses through the back of the peloton, heading into the bunch. No panic, no teammates, no problems.
I think the way the team have acted this afternoon, Phil, they're not really concerned about Fabian Cancellara holding on to the overall lead this afternoon. I think he will lose time on the final climb of the day, but it depends on how the climbers attack the ascent. If there is a lot of attacking and a lot of changes of pace, that will not be good for Fabian Cancellara, because although he's got a big engine, it's a little bit like a big diesel engine. He can get it up to high speed and keep it at that one rhythm for a very long time. But climbers like Alberto Contador, they like to go uphill by accelerating and slowing down, accelerating and slowing down, and that actually assassinates a rider like Fabian Cancellara.
Dizzy old chase, isn't it? Our camera keeping up with him here on these narrow roads. He carves his way through. Andy Schleck, you mentioned there, Paul, he said this morning, by the way, that he'd see how his body is going to react and how the form is, but he's very conscious of the fact that when Jan Ullrich won here in 1997, he went on to win the Tour de France. These guys actually do look at facts and figures, it seems.
All of the professional bike riders, I think, Phil, are interested in the history of the sport, and the sport that goes back a very long way. It's regarded the history in two parts, really. We regard the post-Second World War as the modern era of the sport, and all of those results from there, I think what a lot of riders do take time out to go and study.
Another stunning shot as we disappear into the tunnels and come out the other side, hopefully all in one piece. You can probably hear the horn still blowing. Well, that means that Fabian Cancellara is still cutting his way back into the pack, but this is quite a long descent. We're dropping 2,500 feet beforehand. There's the doctor's car. Oh, goodness me. Well, you can't blame the doctor's car. He's got nowhere else to go.
Although, but bear in mind, Cancellara is a superb bike handler, and nearly every one of the drivers in that convoy at the back, Phil, has been a professional cyclist himself. He knows what sort of line a rider is going to take around the corner. And as you mentioned there, with the horns that we keep hearing there, that's a signal from each of the drivers to the driver in front that there's a rider coming back up through the convoy.
Well, the only way through the side of this mountain was through these tunnels, I think. But we're certainly doing a good job. Plenty of wheels, everybody's seeing where they're going. Well, as we look through the beauty of the Pyrenees here, and it won't be long before Fabian Cancellara is in contact with the back of that race. 177 started the Tour today of the 180 that started a week ago from Monaco. He's not back yet, but stop anybody creeping up on them. That's the important thing. Cadel Evans' team, or the riders in the red jerseys, doing their best to bring Cadel back into the action here. And that's big Johan van Summeren who's setting the horse, setting the pace. Such a strong workhorse, he really is. This is Andorra now. Normally it's a hustle-bustle capital here of the Principality of Andorra. All the cars have been pushed down the side turnings. Totally closed now by the whole peloton in the race.
It's regarded, Andorra la Vieja, by the way, as the highest town in Europe at an altitude of 1,029 meters. But although it's got its origins going back to medieval times, it's certainly now becoming pretty much a corporate headquarters.
Well, it's a tax-free haven as well, and prices and notes will be cheaper in the restaurants too. And so it has its own certain attractions here, as the crowd very politely applaud the leaders here as they're now heading towards the second sprint of the day, third sprint of the day rather, and the climb of the Arcolis. They're going to get there, Paul, with about 8 minutes lead, I reckon.
And one other thing, Phil, with the fact that the sprint points have all been taken away by this breakaway of 9 riders, that gives Mark Cavendish a good way of conserving his lead in the green jersey points classification, which he held on to yesterday only by a single point.
Now, you can't call that a house with a view if you sit at the back, can you?
No, but you've got to be very careful when you go out the kitchen door.
You certainly have. It's a long way down, folks. I never know how they get the bricks up there.
Well, the bricks wasn't the hard part, Phil. I think it was actually the mortar.
Indeed. Yes. Looking down to the bottom, there's the race going underneath. And we don't have any knowledge of that little property, do we? What a shame. As we go underneath that property, heading towards the other end of the town, then the climb steadily uphill. So as they continue now to cheer on, we've come inside 10 minutes. It is coming down quickly. These boys won't actually believe in themselves just yet. It's a massive margin, but how fast is it going to shut down? That's the question. Bryce Faylieu is the rider at the back, riding his first Tour de France. He must be tingling here with all these people shouting him in his first ever breakaway. He's only a kid. He's got 10 years as a pro if he wants it. Will he win the stage? That would be a turn-up for the French if they won in Andorra, wouldn't it? Well, of the Tour de France, if Cancellara or Armstrong can get inside 3:13 to him, one or the other will either be the next leader or will keep the lead. It's quite a conjuring of figures today.
There was the winner of yesterday's stage going backwards there, and that in fact was Thor Hushovd. This is David Miller, the aggressive rider of yesterday, who lost out a chance of victory with just 1 kilometre to go to the finish. A brave move by David Miller, and unfortunately on this occasion it didn't work. Getting a chance to move through the field here and see all of the riders who have been caught out by the steepness of this climb. Johan van Sommeren going backwards there, one of the big helpers for Cadel Evans. Now that's a little bit of a surprise.
Well, he did do a lot of work, in fairness, for Johan. He's been racing at the front to bring Cadel into a position. Now it's time to check out and check back, I guess, and hopefully get home himself. But you see, I think they could have actually said, and been honest with the riders, that this climb starts in Andorra, and not just said it starts with 10 kilometres to go to the finish.
Just looking at the style of the riders here, Phil, this is supposed to be the false flat before the actual start of the climb. Everybody has been caught unawares. That was Koen de Kort going back there for Team Skil Shimano, as the leading group of 9 now line up for this final sprint of the afternoon. And this is the sprint at La Cortinada, the last sprint of the day. But more importantly, I think what this last 20 kilometres is all about is the last 10 kilometres, really, the climb up to Arcalís.
Once they cross the line here, 16.5 kilometres left of the day's stage. The gap continues to tumble down, 7:48 now. So they're going to reach those last 10 kilometres with maybe 6 minutes lead. Begin to think 6 minutes may not be enough.
It may not be. There's Thomas Voeckler, the winner of the stage just a couple of days ago. He's not one of the best climbers in the peloton here. He's just looking to try and survive, but he's been tailed off as well. You know, when you make a big effort in a breakaway like Thomas Voeckler did a couple of days ago, it takes you a little while to recuperate and get back to some form.
Filippo Pozzato also tried to win yesterday. He's also unhitched from the group. They've gone back up to the leading group here as they head up towards La Cortinada, and it's here where, whether they sprint or not, I don't know, because now they're getting a little bit more preoccupied with the big win. Is that Bryce Faylieu going to have a little attack? Has he got? No, he's just keeping up with Wales.
I think he's just happy to be in the group. Alexander Kruczynski at the back there in the lime green jersey of Liquigas. A lot of the work now being done by the former time trial champion of Spain, and that's Jose Ivan Gutierrez. He's probably thinking about the possibility of a return to the front of the race by Oscar Pereiro or even Luis Leon Sanchez.
Now, I reckon the first to go will be the orange jersey of Igor Martinez. Remember last year when the Tour de France went into Prata Novoso? Igor Martinez led all the way and Simon Gerrans beat him in the end in the sprint from Australia. This is the sprint here. I think we won't use the word sprint. This is the passage underneath the banner of La Cortinada with Gutierrez going through, followed by Jérôme Pino and the Milram rider Johannes Freundinger. I don't think I've mentioned his name before. He's gone over. And now, nothing else. Somebody else dropping back there as well. Been up in the prizes throughout the day, even on the hills we've had, but now he's paying for it. It's been a long breakaway on the longest day of the stage of the race, don't forget. Now it looks Christoph Kern is also just gritting his teeth and trying to hold on to the back wheel there of Bryce Faylieu. I should imagine by now Matt White is getting excited.
Ryder and Martin, you've done a super job so far. Let's keep Christian and Wigo right up near the front of the bottom of this climb. 213 it starts.
Checking where he is.
The job's finished as soon as we hit the bottom, guys. Just make sure Wigo and Christian are in very, very good position at the bottom.
Now, what Matt means their job's finished, he's talking to the helpers, the domestiques, and of course, when they've got Christian in the lead, they can drop off. Well, the peloton now really are dancing on the pedals. 9.8 kilometers to climb. Kuzinski has just cracked and slipped off, so we're left with 8 men at the front. Astana are still controlling the front of the race. 6 minutes 34 the gap, and Astana still controlling the head of the peloton. Everybody now is on the climb of the Arcolis.
Yes, and it's still on the front end, Phil. Sergio Paulino doing all of the pacemaking and starting to queue up behind him, though. There are 1 or 2 other teams you can see just on the right-hand side. Garmin, Slipstream, they're ready to take over.
The gap is 6 minutes 34 as they come to grips now with the mountain Andorra Arcolis. 9.7 kilometers for the leaders, who are now down to 8 men. They've just dropped Alexander Kuzinski, and it looks as though they're going to have to work hard to hold off the whole thing.
Him pushing himself, he was riding right on the edge of his maximum for as long as he could, but once you've done the job in hand, then there's not much more you can do, so he'll just have to ride towards the summit of this climb and survive. Heinrich Hausler there, and he stayed in contact for a very long time on the inside with that white jersey of Cervelo test team. We're starting to weed out a number of riders. There is the man I spoke about just moments ago, Phil, Inigo Cuesta. He's going backwards.
And he won a time trial up this very mountain once in the Tour of Catalunya, but not today, I'm afraid. As riders now are cracking thick and fast. Hubert Dupont is the other rider, Meiji Tour. A couple of Garmin boys are gone here, and that is Ryder Hagedal, the Canadian, and Tyler Farrar. I think to be expected, Paul, because they're sprinters, really.
And this is the damage that's now being done by a change in pacemaking at the front by somebody from Astana. Now, this is a great climber, too. Used to ride for Euskaltel Euskadi. It's Haimar Zubeldia himself. He's finished extremely highly placed overall in the Tour de France. Alongside him is Lance Armstrong in the dark helmet there.
And now look at you get somebody that they've come around that very steep corner on the climb. It doesn't look it, but it really does kick on that inside. That's why they're going round a little bit wide here. Now something's happened here. Well, the first attack has come from Riblon, I think, unless it's Noncentini who's launched the attack, but I think it's Christophe Riblon who has gone, the man that's cleaned up in all of the mountain climbs today. So he's thrown down the gauntlet to tempt the others to come out, and it's put Bryce Fellou into trouble.
And the first man to react once again there, Phil, you can see, is the orange jersey of Euskaltel Euskadi, and that is Egoy Martinez, straight across the gap, nailing him back. But that has reduced the breakaway now from 8 riders down to 4.
Well, the other man just getting on, Johannes Freulinger there. He's a German on the Milram team, riding his first Tour. He's been very quiet in this breakaway, but he's obviously watching everybody too.
Well, they've come back together after that little flurry of attacks, but what's more important is you keep an eye on the time. It's come down to 5 minutes and 30 seconds.
Well, George Hincapie is dropping off the back now as well from the main pack.
That's not really a surprise, because George didn't really come here to win the Tour de France, but just to stay in contact for as long as possible. But that's an indication that the pressure is really starting to come on in that pack.
Well, everybody is starting to drop back now, and our computer is suggesting a catch at 2 kilometers from the summit of the climb. Yes, that was Marcus Foten who has dropped off. We're just giving you views from the rear of the peloton right now. Charlie Wegelius, the UK rider, he also is a good climber, Paul. Yeah, he's clearly he's clearly in trouble today. Sergei Ivanov has cracked as well. He was right at the front moments ago.
Jens Voigt has also disappeared from this group, from the Yellow Jerseys group, from the Yellow Jerseys team. Moving further forward now, you can see this is Nicolas Vaugondi. He was on the ground a little earlier. Again, a little acceleration from the leading group by Christopher Kern. He's trying to move off the group if he can, joined still by that rider from Milram.
Well, Freulinger is looking as though he's a bit of a surprise here. He's marked every attack so far, and he hasn't been that active in winning the prizes all day. But he's got across to Christophe Kern. Here comes Jose Ivan Gutierrez. And I don't think there's much left in the legs of poor old Jerome Pino, the 8 times Tour rider. He looks as though he's not going to react to that one. Neither Gutierrez as well.
Well, Fröhlinger decided there. You can see the yellow jersey on the shoulders of Fabian Cancellara. He's under a little bit of pressure now, Phil. He's lost a number of teammates, but he's still hanging tough in there, staying in contact with the group. He will try and ride at his own pace for as long as possible.
Well, he's got a grimace on his face, but he's looking strong. He's still fighting. Right down there in the white jersey behind Lance Armstrong. What does that face tell you? Not a man in trouble for sure. All that one of Alberto Contador. These boys are tapping out a rhythm and the rest can get on with it. They're not in any trouble at all, and neither is the youngster Tony Martin just behind them.
There was George Hincapie going backwards. There you can see Christophe Moreau finished 4th overall in the Tour a number of years ago, but these are riders who are in the groups being left behind by the acceleration and the work being done by Team Astana.
Well, it's made a big difference, hasn't it, this tempo riding? The flick of the arm there is to call the next rider through. Who's going to come? Christoph Kern can't go. He wants Martinez to go. Just to remind you, everyone, this is the Nature Valley commercial-free half hour. We're taking the riders to the summit now with no interruption. And still this incessant tempo by Astana. Deja vu for sure. Lance Armstrong, deja vu. We've seen it for 7 years, and there must be a lot of people here saying, oh boy, we're going to have to do it all again now. Armstrong is back.
Well, Armstrong is back, but so too at the back of the group is the yellow jersey Fabian Cancellara. He's remaining very much in contact with this group, while in the leading group there's another acceleration coming, and once again it's Reblon, the French rider, on AG2R. But this is where the action is going to happen, Phil. This is where the race is for the yellow jersey. I can see Fabian Cancellara sitting at the back of the group. Now that's not really a very good indication.
No, he's just slipped back a little bit too far for my mind just at the moment. He's dropped down past Big Dave Zabriskie, and it's just a continued tempo to try and crack these guys as they continue now. These look like they must be Australians, I think. But we've got the making of that, almost as if they're just going to let this tempo go on and see. That's Cadel Evans now. He's moved right up on the back wheel of Contador. Cadel, I think, must try and attack. He must try and take time, even if it's only seconds, wherever he can today.
But what you've got to understand about Team Astana's tactics is they don't need to attack. They've got the riders placed in 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th place overall. All they have to do is try and ride off Fabian Cancellara and get a gap between him and Lance Armstrong, and then they're really in the driving place of the Tour de France. And we thought that Fellou, the young rider from Agri-Toubel, was in difficulty, but now it's his turn to have a go at glory.
A young rider he most certainly is. And he's now deciding to go and try and rip away to what would be a most incredible victory if it were to happen. And there's no reaction from the field yet, because it looks as though Reblon looks round at Nocentini, his teammate, and so they've decided if they chase him, they're going to have to pick up the speed slowly but surely, because they can't answer to this acceleration.
Well, what's a psychological blow when you're in a breakaway like this? We're still pretty much in the tree line here in the Pyrenees, but once you get out of the tree line, you suddenly start to look up towards the skies, and you can see just exactly where you've got to go. And they haven't got to that point where they can see the finishing line way up in the distance yet, and that will be a real slap in the face.
8 minutes behind at the start of the day, 5:17 in front as we speak. In fact, it's just gone up by 2 seconds, so he's 5:19 in front now. This would be an incredible result if he were to win the stage, but at the moment he's put all the active boys on second command here. The 2 riders on AG2R at the front because they've the most to gain. Oh, and this is a sad sight. This is a sad sight. He saw his face grimacing, and now the tempo of Astana has broken the spirit of Fabian Cancellara, and he's no team here. Andy Schleck is still up there, but he can't come back for him. Schleck now could be establishing himself as the team leader.
Well, you have to understand that Fabian Cancellara had led this race since the individual time trial in Monaco by just a few seconds, and then he was just separated by the overall lead by 0.22 of a second to Lance Armstrong. But what's more important, I think, is now he's realized that he can't stay in contact with this infernal pace which is being set by Team Astana. If we were to stop the race right now with that gap, Lance Armstrong would be the brand new leader of the Tour de France. He will pull on the yellow jersey, but we haven't yet got to the point where there's going to be accelerations and attacks in this race.
Well, Armstrong is now the race leader of the Tour de France on the road. All he's got to do now is finish for the next yellow jersey.
And again, it's Christophe Kern from Cofidis is going forward and always marked, always covered by the man in orange there, Egoy Martinez, hoping that it all comes back together and he can get some glory for Spain and, of course, for his Basque team.
Well, that was a Frenchman actually cheering up Brice Feliu just there as he continues now to try and hold everybody off. 3.6 kilometers to go. It's not very far, is it? But the roads, I'm afraid, don't get any easier. At 5 minutes and 8 seconds, that's where you'll find the King of the Mountains leader, Ogier, Mark Cavendish, and the Maillot Jaune. I haven't seen Mark Cavendish, I must confess, since he fell off down at the bottom of the climb in Andorra.
Well, one teammate here alongside Fabian Cancellara, just pacing him up towards the summit of this climb, and that's Gustav Larsen. He was a silver medalist. Funnily enough, we've got the gold and silver medalist from the individual time trial in Beijing here, side by side on the slopes of this monster mountain in the Pyrenees.
Well, he's going to rely heavily now on being nearest to the summit, the Maillot Jaune. If he doesn't lose too much time, who knows? But I think as this is only day one in the Pyrenees, there'll be more bad luck or more bad time tomorrow for him. But Andy Schleck is up here, and he is the next obvious candidate to lead the Saxo Bank team. But again, it is all Astana. The policy of the day was to ride at the front and crack the enemy within.
And that was the enemy that they wanted to beat, the man who has dominated this race over the first week of racing. Fabian Cancellara, Phil, now has lost a huge chunk of time. He was in exactly the same time as Lance Armstrong since the team time trial just days ago, and now he's lost himself. It's going to be more than a minute by the time he gets to the climb. It is so difficult when you've been the yellow jersey to lose that, but today I think the two flat tyres were maybe an indication of the bad luck that was waiting for him.
That was very unlucky. He used energy to get back. He made it look easy, but he used energy. The peloton are through 5 kilometers. They are still 2 kilometers behind the front runners. There's a chance those front runners might just make it, but just look at this incessant tempo here. This is so hard. This is Gregory Rast, I think. No, Zubeldia has gone now, so he's done his work as well. And Raimon Zubeldia is a climber, as he is now dropped off the back of the peloton. We are looking at 3 kilometers precisely to the summit of Arcalise, and a young Frenchman is out in front here and trying to clean up. And this is Brice Feliu. He attacked from the breakaway. He was the most unlikely guy to attack. We saw him struggling at the start of the climb. Not a bit of it.
Well, now he's got himself into a fairly good rhythm, and he doesn't look as if he's under all kinds of difficulties. Riding sensibly. Nice to see a little sign at the side of the road there, Phil, from the Isle of Man, and I'm sure those are supporters for Mark Cavendish, but Cavendish will be a long way back in this race this afternoon. The two riders from AG2R there, you can see Nocentini and Riblon trying to keep the pressure, trying to get the organisation to pull that young rider from Agri-Toubel back into the fold. But I think this afternoon that young man, Brice Feliu, is doing a storming ride.
Well, it'll be a dream come true, and nobody could have believed that they certainly kept this one a secret. He's such a good young climber. But already Cancellara has virtually lost 1 minute on the Armstrong group now, so Lance Armstrong only has to ride to the finishing line and see nobody in that group gets in front of him and snatch it any time to be the next leader of the Tour de France. And in fact, Alberto Contador will have to finish 18 seconds ahead of Lance to claim the yellow jersey, and he won't try to do that. So it's looking very, very good that the dream will be completed. The dream comeback by an American. He could be in yellow tonight. In fact, I'll go as far as to say he'll almost certainly be in yellow.
Yes, I don't think Alberto Contador will lay down an attack here, especially when he knows that his team has got the yellow jersey currently in their midst, in their fold. And Contador just sitting there behind Lance Armstrong, looking at the man who won the Tour de France on 7 occasions. And there's no need at all, and as I've said just earlier, Phil, there's no need at all for Astana to attack. It's the other teams who have to attack if they want to take the lead in this bike race. Nice to notice there that Bradley Wiggins of Garmin Slipstream and of Great Britain was also sitting comfortably in 4th spot.
And looks good. Bradley is saying that he hopes to finish in the top 15. He set himself a very realistic target at the Tour de France, and if he does, that would be a terrific result, for the man has been 3 times a gold medalist at the Pursuit World Champion and the World Championships as well. Well, 5-10 to the white jersey, 6+ to this man here. He's dropping out of it today. He's going to come up, I think, maybe 2 minutes behind the Lance Armstrong Alberto Contador group.
That's Bryce Fellou we're looking at there, a young man for Agri-Toubel, riding the Tour de France for the first time. He's got about a 30-second advantage over a 5-man chasing group. There are 2 riders in there from AG2R. That's Nocentini and Riblon doing the pacemaking behind him, but he's still 2 kilometers to go to the summit.
And battle on with his blue jersey fully unzipped here, taking in the wind. Remember, he's riding into a headwind most of the time here. He does kick around a little bit. It's not always a block headwind, but he will be as he climbs up to the finishing line right on the top of Arcalise. But he's inside 2 kilometers from the finish now. His tempo is good enough to hold off the chase. There is the main field. They are also there. There are 32 seconds, the group he has left behind. Armstrong Cancellara is gone now, but Leipheimer, Van der Velde and Contador are still in that group.
I hate to be the bringer of bad tidings, but let's not forget that, in fact, Lance Armstrong has not yet ridden himself into the yellow jersey position, Phil, because he still needs to pull himself back inside to Nocentini, because Nocentini was 3 minutes and 13 seconds behind Armstrong at the start of the day. So it could be a very close calculation once we get to the finish line if that group with Nocentini conserves more than 3 minutes and 15 seconds on the line.
Well, at the moment, they've got 4.5 minutes. That's Armstrong's group behind Nocentini. And is this Cadel Evans who's launched an attack? Because I think he had to do it today, and he's going to test them. Well, this will cause the reaction, Paul, that will close this gap down.
Well, Evans has moved there straight up into 3rd position is Alberto Contador. Straight onto Contador's wheel is Lance Armstrong in 4th. Cadel knows that he has to do something special here this afternoon to get rid of as many contenders as possible and start to climb back up the overall classification. Look at Armstrong there.
Armstrong's pushed himself right up behind there. This is the old Lance Armstrong. This is the man that did win the Tour 7 times. He is back, and he's back with the same form. Straight onto the back wheel of the rider who has finished 2nd in this race the past 2 years. Contador queuing up to grab hold of Evans as well. Poor old Cadel. He's outnumbered 2-1 again.
Well, moving up there now, it's Andreas Claude, and what a team this is that Team Astana have got. A little bit of difficulty here for at the back there. Zabriskie couldn't take that acceleration, but he stayed in contact for an awful long time. This is Kim Kirken now going backwards from the group.
And again, it is the young Tony Martin who's still in this group. The white jersey wearer for Columbia HTC, in no trouble at 24 years of age. We race back up towards the leaders again.
This is a Menshoff, is it? This is the next big split. No, that isn't Menshoff. Menshoff's a little bit further up the road round there. But looking at the face there, Phil, of Armstrong, this is a man who really wants to get the yellow jersey here this afternoon, and they have got such an incredible squad. Levi Leipheimer is still in contact over there to the right-hand side, and it's Cloden now doing the pacemaking. Armstrong doesn't look like a man in difficulty, and there's another move coming here from Team Lotto. They're trying to set something up for Cadel Evans this afternoon. Cadel Evans knows that he has to go on every climb if he wants to try and win this bike race.
Well, I think this is Jürgen van den Broek who's launched an attack there. And that is a bit of a surprise, but that's the 1 kilometer marker for Bryce Fellou. The young Frenchman, out of the blue, could be pulling the biggest race France has ever won in the Stage of Tour de France for years. And he's only a young rider, and this will be the ride of his life. We'll set him up. They'll all be queuing up to sign him up on the big teams. It's a wild card decision to have brought Agri-Toubel into this. Now, they won't chase this rider. I think it's Van den Broek who's gone clear. Evans is the mark man. He's been put back in his place in 3rd wheel. He's surrounded by Astana. Andy Schleck is also there in 4th wheel. I thought Andy would have tried to move as well, but he doesn't seem to be able to.
Well, I think he may well be waiting for a different day here this afternoon. There's 30 seconds is the advantage of young Bryce Fellou over Christophe Koerner. Another acceleration coming here, Phil. And again, it was looks like that was, in fact, the rider going round the corner was Jürgen van den Broek, but there's a big acceleration there, and that looks like Alberto Contador.
Well, that's the answer. If he gets 18 seconds on Armstrong, he'll be the next yellow jersey, but there is the reaction from the field. It is mano a mano here, as the gap is continuing to go like this. And it looks to me as though Contador, don't forget, they've got to shut down the gap on Nocentini, who is up the road. And our clocks have stopped giving us the actual time checks at the moment.
The chase there is coming from Andy Schleck, who's noticed how dangerous this is. Cadel Evans has gone onto the defensive. He's in second position. Armstrong is still there. At the end of the day, this man needs 20 seconds to take the overall lead away from his own teammate Lance Armstrong. He started the day 19 seconds in arrears, but he is a great champion and a great climber as well, and he's put pressure on this group. Andy Schleck now tried to get across the gap but couldn't. Armstrong will play the defensive role and sit there and see whether or not they can pull back the Spaniard into the fold, and Cadel Evans, if he wants to do something, needs to go again.
Well, that is the advantage of having two great cyclists on the team. One can block for the other. If you catch the other one attacks. This is the man who's riding to the greatest moment of his very young bicycle career. He's just signed professional for the Agri Turbel team, rather. He got into a breakaway today of 9, and he's gone to win on the highest mountain of this year's Tour de France. He can't have ever dreamt of this. Don't slow down now, Bryce. As he hits the line, victory for France in the most amazing circumstance, and indeed a 1-2, because Christophe Kern has crossed over in second place. But this is the battle for the next yellow jersey. It's all down to time. Remember that Nocentini 3:13 ahead of Lance Armstrong at the start, even further ahead of Alberto Contador, and it's Johannes Freudiger who has made it over in third place. I think it was Riblon in fourth. And still the Spanish flags are run with this one now, because this is Alberto Contador. Did you see the way he flew away from the field?
Well, Alberto Contador, Johan Brunel told us a couple of years ago he'd never seen anybody be able to accelerate like this man on a climb. Not once, not twice, but 4 or 5 times. He is an incredible climber, but he's learned over the last few years to time trial as well to become one of the complete Grand Tour contenders. That group now is all starting to come back together. Armstrong is playing the ultimate teammate here. He's sitting on the wheel of Cadel Evans, allowing Evans to try and chase back the young Spaniard who has flown the coupe.
Well, the clock is running on our screen now. Now remember that if Nocentini, when he gets in, the clock will start on between him and between Alberto Contador, because Jerome Pino has blown away. He was another likely leader tonight, but he's gone as Contador now runs inside the last kilometre. And 1:29 has passed by since the lead across the line fell you. We haven't been given a finish yet for Nocentini, but look at this. Is that Christian van der Velde who's found the legs in the most crucial moment? He's tried the attack. Now it's Evans jumping over him. There's got to be a reaction to chase Evans now from Armstrong. I think there was.
There's going to be a big battle in this Tour de France. This is only the first battle of what is going to be a war throughout the mountains. Evans now flicking his wrist there, wants some assistance, and looks to me like that's Bradley Wiggins in second position there. Armstrong has come back up with his dark helmet, followed by Andy Schleck just at the back.
Well, if that is Bradley Wiggins, that's the best climb he's ever done in a mountain top. We can't tell from this camera angle, but I see Tony Martin is hanging on to the back, so he's keeping his white jersey leadership tonight for sure, and gaining time over all of this. Go Lance, you're the best. What about Go Alberto? He's even better right now as he dances on the pedals up to the line. He grits his teeth. We don't know if there will be a yellow jersey awaiting him, because we don't know what position Nocentini all his time across the line, but we will be able to tell you afterwards, of course. Here comes Alberto Contador. Many people thought he would win today. He wasn't given the chance at victory today because the breakaway simply proved too strong and stayed away. Wise man to check underneath. He's been really giving this his best shot, Paul, because he knows these seconds are very important.
He knows the seconds are extremely important, but I think he's actually run out of time to try and grab the jersey away from Nocentini here this afternoon, but that's maybe not so important for Alberto Contador. It's the psychological blow and the fact that he's put himself to the top of the real contenders amongst Team Astana. and of course he's showing everybody else just how good this kid can go uphill.
Here will be desperately close, so we don't know what Nocentini did, but he had a 3:13 advantage from Armstrong, hits the line at 3:25, I think the gap was, as he finishes best of the main field now, and it is Bradley Wiggins who's driving up to the line. Well done, Bradley. This is a ride and a half for the Garmin Slipstream rider. Evans kicks again. Leipheimer grits his teeth. Andy Schleck is trying to break on the right. Levi is in here too, but it's all over. So a little bit of prestige there for Cadel Evans, followed over the line by Bradley Wiggins, by Andy Schleck, Levi. Frank Schleck was in there as well. It's going to be desperately close at the top between Nocentini and Alberto Contador for yellow tonight. They'll be working it out as we speak. There's the view in the bowl here at the top of Arcalis. All the cars set down, and there is Lance Armstrong today. He was good.
It was looking to me, and I'm just looking back at the clock there, Phil. I think Alberto Contador and Lance Armstrong actually crossed the line 19 seconds apart, so we're going to have to wait very closely to get the official time gaps on the line there. I wasn't quite sure on the position of Ronaldo Nocentini, but I think he may well just have had enough time over those riders on the line to have survived and grasped himself a little bit of a surprise this afternoon.
Well, there's a nice look at the angle. It looks like Alpe d'Huez in that angle, doesn't it? This is Kreuziger coming in here now. He's lost a little bit of ground on the white jersey because Tony Martin was in that front group. 4:52 and counting. These are the time gaps now. It's going to be desperately close, actually, between Armstrong, Nocentini and Alberto Contador as to who goes in yellow, because we don't know where Nocentini finished, but I think he was ahead.
Well, we'll have to wait, Phil. That's the confusing thing that happens on a big mountain stage like this, when there are so many attacks and people spread all over the side of this mountain. One thing is for certain, that Fabian Cancellara is no longer the leader of the Tour de France, but
sadly,
what a valiant first week he's put in. He's controlled the yellow jersey. He went out and did a storming ride in the team time trial. But look at this one more time. How about that for an acceleration? Alberto Contador straight out of the pack, showing everybody how fast he is when it comes to going uphill.
Well, only a great climber can do that, and he just went on and on. He can lift his speed, he can kick again. His acceleration is frightening. He's an absolute pure climber, although he's showing us at the moment he can ride a good time trial as well. Well, a 1-2 for France on the stage. The French would never ever have laid a bet for that to have happened today, and it did, with the two surprising riders of Bryce Feliu and Christophe Kern.
Well, they allowed that leading group of 9 riders, Phil, to get too much of an advantage over the front end of the main field. And I tell you one thing, that was a great performance by that young rider from France. But it just goes to show that Alberto Contador is the big #1 favourite.
Well, as we take a gander now right across the beautiful Pyrenees here, that was a little bit of a reserve battle, I think. They didn't give all their energy today because tomorrow is a real tough day in the Pyrenees. That's the end of our Nature Valley commercial free half hour right now. We're going to go to break, but don't go away, because we're going to take a little while just to work out who is the next. Bryce Feliu has won the stage here, and there's been a battle for the yellow jersey. It's going to be decided by 3 rides. We're waiting to work it out for ourselves. The arrival, though, of the yellow jersey coming in, the clock, Paul, has just reached 9 minutes. It's definitely gone.
Well, I don't think anybody really would be over surprised by the crumbling of Fabian Cancellara. He's a great rider in the individual time trial. He's a great battler on the flatlands of races like the Tour de France, but he never really has been a massive, big mountain goat.
Let's have a look where the main contenders sit at the moment, behind the new leader, Ronaldo Nocentini. Contador, Armstrong, Leipheimer, all teammates, and separated by just 33 seconds in that order. Christian van der Velde, who was 4th in the race last year, he sits in 8th place, 1:24 back. Last year's winner, Carlos Sastre, is looking for a bit of time at this stage, 2 minutes 52 behind in 15th place, while Cadel Evans is looking for 3 minutes and 7 seconds. France. They're coming home today. 177 riders setting off from the Principality for what is a glorious day, heading for Saint-Giron. And strangely enough, the race had never finished here before, although it's often passed by. So they're making a special job of that finishing line in a most beautiful town. Now, yesterday it was a French winner, the second of the Tour so far, and this fella, Brice Feylieu, winning his first stage of the Tour de France, but at the same time getting 40 points in the King of the Mountains competition, and so he pulls on the leader's polka dot jersey. This is how it stands today for Feylieu. He picked up another 9 out on course as well, so he got 49 points. Riblon, who won all of the climbs out on course, has a total of 46, and Christophe Kern, second yesterday, he also has 46. Paul, how many points available today?
Quite a lot of points available on today's stage. There are 2 first category climbs, and you get 15 points for being the first over those climbs, and there's 1 second category climb, and you get 10 points for going over there in first place. However, if the climb and the last climb is a first category, is towards the end, then the points on that occasion are doubled, so quite a few points to be gained.
Down at the start, there he is in his polka dot jersey, Brice Feylieu, the green sprinters jersey held by Mark Cavendish, the new yellow jersey, Rinaldo Nocentini, the white jersey there by Tony Martin. As they roll away, as always, Paul, no need to hurry out of Andorra because there's a big hill round the corner.
Yes, but as soon as they reached the actual start of the race, they were on the foot of the Port de Envalira. And I tell you what, everybody wanted to get out on the attack. A bit of a surprise that it was still going for the moves, Team Agri-Turbel.
So Lance Armstrong and Alberto Contador under pressure right from the gun today. A breakaway forming. Sandy Cassar, the leader of the Française des Jeux team, getting away on the climb. But more importantly than that, behind him, Cadel Evans has also attacked, taking with him a group of riders here. It's going to be a busy day in the Pyrenees.
It certainly is. Cadel Evans is a man who's said that he's not going to lay down arms in this event until he gets to Paris. He starts the day 18th overall. He's looking for over 3 minutes. Well, once they got to the summit of the climb, Sandy Cassar was still in the lead, but there was a smaller group forming behind of some pretty serious contenders.
Cadel Evans, the big worry, of course, as far as the rest is concerned, but the sprint being won here by Christophe Kern, who finished second on the stage on Arcolis yesterday. So he has actually taken enough points to become the new leader now in the King of the Mountains competition. Igor Martinez was third, Cadel Evans was fourth. That's the story so far. That's on Nature Valley stage reset. Glorious pictures again on the Tour de France, and I hope you're all watching this in high definition. That's how we're sending them to you this year from the Tour. Check your listings and that'll give you some more information on that. The weather today, we're getting warm again now as we turn our back on the other countries of the Tour de France. 59 degrees Fahrenheit. It's going to get even warmer into the mid-70s by the time we get to the finish. Well, rider update for you. Just abandoned on the climb, Eduardo Gonzalo. A little bit of a surprise. I think he was injured when he fell off in Barcelona because he was 30th, just over 32nd, I think, in the Tour de France last year. So bad luck for Eduardo. 175 riders are left of the 180. 15 teams still have all 9 men. There were 20 teams on the start. So 5 teams have each lost a man.
But
now let's get, sorry Paul.
Pretty serious race today though, Phil, because despite all that, we've got a rather interesting race situation. We've got a number of riders out on the course as well, where we are on the pulse, and what I mean by that, with Christian Sorensen, Brian Van Borg, Stefan Ogier and Carlos Barredo will get into their heart rate monitors at times during the race just to see exactly how tough today's race is.
Well, now we're with live pictures. The sun is high in the sky. A little bit of a problem here because Cancellara is not happy at the way Cadel Evans is driving the breakaway. And yes, Fabian Cancellara, the yellow jersey for the first 6 days of this race, is in the breakaway. There is number 11. He's gone to the back now. He's fed up with them all, I think. This is a very strong 10-man breakaway. Cassar was caught 49 kilometers into the stage. Torhushoff came across. He was the last man to join with George Hincapie, Fabian Cancellara and Juan Antonio Fletcher, and they joined up front Sandy Cassar, Cadel Evans, David Zabriskie, Igor Martinez and Vladimir Efakim and Christophe Kern. That's the 10.
But on the front end of the main field, a bit of a surprise because the team that has the yellow jersey are not defending currently. They've got Efemkin in the break, and that's probably one of the riders they felt could take over the overall lead if this break was to succeed. So Team Astana have come to the front, and they're laying down the law again. Hard to believe that we're only really into the first hour and a half of racing, Phil, and we've got such a race on our hands already.
They have absolutely flown today, Paul. I mean, despite the 23-kilometre climb of the Porta d'Onvalira, which they really raced up, which saw the end of poor old Eduardo. He got off his bike, Eduardo Gonzalo. Other riders have been dropped. Mark Cavendish and Tom Bonan dropped at the very start of the climb. We don't know where they are, but as far as we know, they're behind the race today. It's going to be a long day for those guys. But the chase back by Lance Armstrong's, and I better say Alberto Contador's Astana team, are bringing it down to about 20 seconds at the moment. We're dropping into the valleys, couple of sprints there, and then it's up to the second category climb of the Col de Port.
Textbook move going forward here. You can just see there at the top, that is Juan Antonio Fletcher. He knows that the main field are starting to come back. They're around about 10 to 20 seconds behind. There they are. It's not very much. Juan Antonio Fletcher has felt that this is the opportunity for him to fly the coupe. The neutral service car coming out of the gap there. Now this is the moment that Fletcher has to keep the hammer down if he's going to open up the gap, and once they catch Cadel Evans, I think we'll shut off, and this man could very easily build himself up a massive big lead.
Well, he must be crazy to plan on going alone for the rest of today's race, with two more Pyrenean giants ahead before the long flat run down into Saint-Giron. Well, it's virtually all downhill once we're over the top of the Col d'Agnès, which is quite a steep first category climb. The team are hunting to bring Cadel Evans back to heel. Hats off to Cadel Evans, Paul. He attacked from the gun today.
Well, I think Cadel has proved to be a completely different bike rider, Phil, in the Tour de France, and of course in this season as well, because he has gone out very aggressive. We saw him in the Dauphiné Libéré at the start of the Tour and the start of the year, and then after that we've just seen him a couple of times in this race come out and attack to try and pull himself back up into, first of all, a podium position and then possibly a Tour contender's position.
Well, this is Lance Armstrong and his Astana team driving on here. Again, another example of how strange this race is. The team the race is being led by the Italian Rinaldo Nocentini. He's on a French AG2R team, and Cadel Evans is shooting off at the road at the moment. But you know, they're not even defending for the yellow jersey. It's all Armstrong trying to do. That's Cancellara. Yeah. Cancellara, who has actually broken away. If they can rid themselves of Cadel Evans, they know they've got a chance here to go out for the day. That's for sure. A very interesting start to the day. You guys over on the West Coast, stay with us, and thanks for getting up and joining us.
Well, Fabio Cancellara, let's not forget, this is the man who led the Tour de France from Monaco onwards. This is the remnants of the group. Cadel Evans on the right-hand side there with the yellow front to his bike. He's the man that they wanted to pull back into the fold. It's all over now, so I think we're going to see a fraction of time out for the next few kilometres.
Yes, 113 kilometres to go, so that's 63 kilometres gone. It was an epic chase, but they're all brought to heel. Those that are wanted. Be interesting to see now if the others are allowed a little bit of a lead.
Acceleration coming from Euskaltel-Euskadi. Here they wanted to have a man in the breakaway this afternoon, but it's a little bit too late once it's all come back together and two guys have jumped out of the front of the pack.
Well, we're out of breath already on this beautiful day in the Pyrenees. A good attack by Cadel Evans. Well done today for him. As the riders now head on to the next challenge day, which is the Col de Port. The sprint of the day to Luznac, and this is important because the leaders have split up since the catch of Cadel Evans. Thor Hushovd is in this chase, and there he goes for the attack, Paul. If he gets 6 points here, he becomes the green jersey on the road. Yeah,
he's actually only looking for a single point to overtake Mark Cavendish in that green jersey points classification. George Hincapie was hoping to get across the line in front of Hushovd, but the power that the big Norwegian came out of that pack, Phil, nobody was going to challenge him at all. So this is a competition, I think, which is going to start to warm up once we get back to the flat stages. Amazing. Hushovd getting it there. There's the 6 points for the green jersey. He leads by 5 now. Hincapie second and Juan Antonio Fletcher. This is the overall in the race now. Remember, Mark Cavendish is a long way behind as far as we know today. 111 for Hushovd, 106 for Cavendish, 66 back to Cholik. It's a two-horse race at the moment. I think Cavendish more concerned. He's staying with the race right now. You might see
if you can pick out an all-green jersey in here, and that would be the indication he rejoined. But we didn't hear any announcement.
I didn't hear anything on race radio, and I think Mark Cavendish, for the moment, is probably quite a long way behind the main field with a number of the other big sprinters. A lot of people have said that the big favourite for the green jersey points classification is Thor Hushovd because of stages like this, where with his experience and his age, he can get over a couple of climbs and pick up points on the days when Mark Cavendish can't.
Well, Fabian Cancellara has just joined onto the back of that group, so we've got 6 riders up front now. What an active day of racing this is, because these 6 men have come out of the original break of 10. They were hunting down 2 riders, Igor Martinez and Cadel Evans. They got them, and the others attacked, and they're not so interested now because the time gaps to them are much, much larger. For example, Cancellara, the previous leader until yesterday, he conceded 9 minutes yesterday, so he's not a worry at the moment.
The most important man for them to catch was Cadel Evans, because give Cadel Evans a little bit of an advantage on a day like this, and he can put himself back into a position of challenger at the Tour de France. That is why Team Astana came to the front and nailed back that breakaway. Once they'd caught Cadel Evans, they're less concerned. In the main field, Phil, there is still an awful lot of teams that are quite prepared to come forward and do the pacemaking. In second position there is the Irish national champion, Nicholas Roach, and they've really pulled that main field out into a fairly long line. It has stretched out the advantage. It's now being reported at 40 seconds. Just looking down here on the castle of Lorda. Dates back to the 10th and 11th centuries, and it used to be the stronghold of the Count of Foix, and that's a town that we will be circumnavigating a little bit later on this afternoon.
Well, another example of many chateaux here seeped in history down in this part of France. We're tucked underneath the Pyrenees here. Depending on which way you're going, it's either the exit or the gateway. Of course, the riders coming right through them to finish in Saint-Giron, but tomorrow they go back into them and then come out further up the road at up by Tarbes. There's the breakaway. It's now 10 strong. Mikel Astolosa has also reached them. That means now they're free to fly. And there's the man with most to gain just now. He's won the first set of points at the first sprint at Luznac, and he's now the leader on the road in the green sprinters jersey. So it's a good day so far for
mass points for that race too.
Right, tensing up now as we close in on Thor Hushovd. He'll want those 6 points to see if he can do it. Now, George Hincapie is in this group. There he is in that yellowish jersey. He'll try to take on, I think, Hushovd for the points and reduce the amount he wins if he can, because he's trying to protect Mark Cavendish's situation in that green jersey competition. He's lining up there, 1, 2, 3. He's actually taken the wheel now of Thor Hushovd, and Hushovd knows it.
Well, George used to be a great sprinter in the early part of his career, and I think that's exactly what he's going to try and do. But you know, Thor Hushovd is going to be hyper motivated here, because this is a big coup for the sprinter from Norway, and let's not forget a former winner of the green jersey points classification, and he knows on these stages, these mountainous stages, he's got a great chance of building up an advantage over Cavendish. Here he's starting the sprint. Hincapie's in second.
Hincapie's locked on there, but can he go over the God of Thunder? I don't think he can somehow, because he just rides away from George. So George gets second place again at the second sprint. Now the third sprint is on the other side of the Pyrenees today. It comes with 17 kilometers to race, so he's wise to pick them up now, because he may not be here for the last sprint of the day.
Yes, but for Thor Hushovd, he's grabbed himself 12 points so far, and he'll move into the lead in that race by 11 points over Mark Cavendish, and I think Cavendish will try and reverse that once we go back onto the flat stages. This is the town of Tarascon-sur-Ariège. There's the river Ariège just in the background, and it really is an incredibly beautiful river at 170 kilometers in length.
Yes, it is, and in fact we're in the Ariège now, this beautiful department of France. I think everybody loves being down here. It's narrow roads, hilly roads, foothills of the Pyrenees as well, and a lot of cyclists come down here to spend their summer holidays.
It actually, Phil, had some pretty serious reputations during the Second World War, because a lot of the resistance fighters in this area ended up becoming smugglers, because this was basically one of the easiest ways to get away from occupied France, across the borders, through the Pyrenees and into Spain and back to freedom.
That's right, or just go up over the hills and you can go back into Andorra if you wish. There's the results confirmed with Thor Hushovd, George Hincapie, Fabian Cancellara. They are the 3 riders scoring out there. Overall, by the way, Hushovd will now have 117 points in the green jersey. Mark Cavendish slips a little bit to 106, no score today. Gerald Chollick the same. He sits in third. So there we are. It's a quick visit to the feed zone here. We are motoring today. This is the feed in Tarason. It leaves us 85 kilometers to run today. Now the riders, the best time they were expected here was in local time, of course, at 14:38 in the afternoon. And they're grabbing those sacks with a 6-minute advantage over the fastest expected arrival time. We are flying through the... When we all write him off, got to watch him. It's a very shrewd move.
Don't ever write off Fabian Cancellara because he is an aggressive rider and he's in great form. Yes, he struggled a bit with the mountain yesterday, Phil, but I think here these are the kind of stages where if he rides himself into a breakaway, he could dream about getting that yellow jersey back again.
Absolutely. We've officially now just started the Col de Port, which tops out with 74 kilometers to go. It's an 11-kilometer climb. It's not a severe climb. It's a second category climb. It's steep enough, but they should climb it all as one.
Shouldn't be a problem. That's Luis Leon Sanchez, and again you see it's Mikhail Ignatiev. He keeps trying to jump off the front. He's not had a lot of wins as a professional bike rider. In fact, I don't think he's had any wins for the last 2 years, but he did win the gold medal in the Olympic Games in 2004 on the track in the points race, and he's sworn to his team management that he will go out on as many days as possible in this event to try and get himself a stage win. He's causing once again a little bit of a split, and Hincapie is still very attentive, Phil, there, coming across the gap with Luis Leon Sanchez in second position.
Now it's interesting to see that they've started to ruffle a few feathers in this breakaway. A little bit of a surprise, but they've got Ignatiev back to heel, and I think Sebastian Rosler, who's a steady rider, has told him now to take it easy. He's just put the look on him there as Sanchez decides he wants more action. See now, and there is a split there, and in fact that looks as though we've got Sebastian Rosler dropping behind Igor Martinez. Martinez, I am very surprised. He was in amongst all of the action at the sharp end of the field on the climb of the Onvalira until he finally went over the top in third place. I think it'll come back together. It's early days yet, and a long way still to go, of course. 52 miles of racing in the Pyrenees, but the last 25 are all downhill, so that makes it sound a bit better, doesn't it? George Hincapie, free to fly now, not taking anybody away that's damaging anybody on his team. This would be a perfect day for George. I wonder if it will be so. It would be great. He'd be very popular if he won today. Would.
No, and in fact somebody's lifted the tempo around the corner there, causing a slight split in this group, but just an indication that the natural pressure at the front end of the group is splitting riders off the back one by one. Thor Hushovd was the first man to be the victim here. And again, you see George Hincapie, Phil, always attentive. He's moving across the gap. It's Mikhail Ignatiev, the Russian rider on Team Katusha, who all of the time is very keen to put the hammer down.
Hushovd unhooked. It looks as though Rosler is going the same way as they head towards the second climb. They haven't got to the top of this one yet. And Hincapie, we know, will handle these climbs quite well. He spent a long time in his days alongside Lance Armstrong in the mountains for as long as he could, as he now pushes on. And Mikhail Ignatiev really enjoying this Tour de France for the Russian Katusha team. 5 kilometers for the peloton, remember, to go yet on this climb. So that means that they're probably about 3 from the summit in that breakaway.
Jaroslav Popovic over on the right-hand side did a lot of work on the race yesterday. A great champion. He's finished on the podium of the Giro d'Italia. And there you can see just how difficult it is for the team cars to move forward to a breakaway. The team car over on the right-hand side there had been given permission by the referees to go forward to look after his riders in the break, but on these very narrow roads through the Pyrenees, it's a tough job sometimes for the team.
49 kilometers we are now from the finish. We're 4 3/4 kilometers from the summit of the Col d'Agnes. These 4 riders have shaken off everybody now, and Sanchez, if he could get just over 4 minutes, he would be the leader of the Tour de France. But it looks as though the chase is now on, and amongst the riders in that chase group is Bradley Wiggins, who's holding on to 5th place overall. Also Armstrong and Contador. The next obvious leader of the Tour right now will be Alberto Contador, rather, not Lance Armstrong. He'd be second, 2 seconds behind. They're pulling away from the Maillot Jaune now quite quickly. Well, having said that, Paul, 30 seconds, he's actually holding it at 30 seconds.
Got it locked in. He's not going to panic. He's an experienced professional, Phil, is Rinaldo Nocentini. He's been a professional since 1999. He was very successful in the amateur level of the sport, a silver medalist at the World Championships. He knows that if he can just hold it, get a rhythm and not lose too much, he will take incredible risks on the descent to pull himself back into this race. And if you're a good descender, going downhill fast, you can pull back anything between a minute and a minute and a half.
Absolutely. Well, the peloton themselves has now gone past that 5 kilometre. Remember, we're now enjoying a half-hour commercial-free segment of the Tour de France in the Pyrenees, thanks to Nature Valley. As we watch the riders now lift this tempo. We're heading up to the dizzy heights today of 1,570 metres. That's over 6,500 feet. Once up there, we dive to the finish. 44 kilometres left to race, all downhill. Well, there are the 3 riders, Menchoff, Fletcher, and I'm still missing the 3rd member of Rabobank who is there, but I would say it's Laurens ten Dam because he's been riding so well. But is it Oscar Freire? That would be an interesting combination if it was. There's the face of the Maillot Jaune. We say it, if you pull on a yellow jersey, you ride like 2 men. Nocentini is suffering, but at the moment he's hanging on to the gap.
He's coming back because of the efforts of this man on the front, Stéphane Goubert. We've talked about Stéphane Goubert many times throughout the Tour de France as being one of the older, experienced French professional bike riders. They were at one stage 30 seconds in arrears. Yep. He's now pulled it back, Phil, to 21 seconds. He doesn't need to catch this group before the top of the climb, but if he keeps it between 30 seconds to 1 minute, I predict that he will come back on the descent.
And I am just stunned by the speed these guys are climbing the mountains today. They look as though they're flying up it. We're only just over 3.5 kilometres from the summit now for the 3 leaders. And Nocentini knows, he's saying, sir, if I can just get over the top, 35, 40 seconds, 45 seconds back, I've got 42 kilometres to catch up with Contador and Armstrong, and I will stay in yellow tonight. That's all he'll be thinking about.
And if the yellow jersey catches up to the Lance Armstrong, Contador and the rest of the challengers group, that will be a good sign for the leading group of 4, because they will then probably give up the chase behind the 4 men.
That's right, there's no reason to chase anymore. This is the La Tongue de l'Air, which is in the municipality of the area which we know as Le Port. It's 2 hectares of water down there, and as we've gone around the inside, it must have looked very welcoming at the moment.
It certainly is, and it actually sits in an area which is known as the pick of the 3 seigneurs, and I think we're looking at a lot more than 3 seigneurs in the sport of professional cycling here this afternoon, because in the group Contador, I think all of the grand seigneurs of the sport are currently present and correct.
They've done their battle. They've waited for the end yesterday. The Envolé was sadly too far from the end of the ride, and somebody else just shot into that pack, and I think it was Geraghty.
Yes, but look at the difference. That is the group of the yellow jersey at, what, 5 seconds, and they're very shortly going to all come back together.
Goubert's been fantastic.
A little bit of a flurry of activity from Andy Schleck, giving us an eye-opener as to what we can expect for when we get into the Alps in about 10 days' time. Today, the climb, I think, just a little bit too far away from the finish to dislodge the yellow jersey, but it certainly created a little bit of excitement.
Well done, Ronaldo. He's got right back, and when he gets his breath back, he might say, thanks, Stéphane, for that. We're still in the yellow, mate, as they now have settled down again. I think they've eased very slightly away.
Quite remarkable as well, because Romain Feliu finished 28 minutes behind his brother on the stage in the group that we know as the Autobus, alongside Mark Cavendish and most of the other big sprinters.
Look at the tempo here now, Sanchez, the bit between his teeth. He says, I'm winning this stage, I'm going to drive, and I'm not letting anybody catch me up. He's only got 1:36 advantage with the others here. Vladimir Efakine, he's a teammate of the yellow jersey. He's sitting at the back. We call him the ticket collector, checking on the numbers, doing nothing, just causing a few problems at the back, watching where they're going. But if he came to the finish, I guess he'd go to first place rather than 4th.
There, the yellow jersey moving to the front, and the reason he's done that, Phil, is just to show everybody that he's back in the race. I have recovered and I have returned to the front end of the main field, and you haven't got rid of me just yet.
Zubeldia is dropping back here to go back to Johan Brunel and pick up a bottle. Well, that was a big effort. It's not done the big damage in the end, but it looked as though it was for a while. Now he's collecting the bottles now to get more back to the leaders.
But Phil, that acceleration from Andy Schleck showed us just exactly what we can expect as we start to go forward. Just sliding back through the main field there was David Miller, and he survived today after a very difficult day in the mountains yesterday, where he lost a whole chunk of time.
And he wasn't going off the back of the group, he was going back bottle hunting as well. So clearly they backed off the gas in that group. Now the yellow jersey has rejoined. If he'd have stayed off the back, they'd have kept going.
The main field, they did get rid of the yellow jersey, but he admirably fought his way back to not panic, and that's the important thing, I think, for Nocentini, not to panic in a situation like this. He knows he can't respond to accelerations from an Andy Schleck, but he also knows that if they slow down, he's got a great chance of coming back into the event.
A bit of an acceleration here by B-Box Boyd Telecom. And that should cause a little bit of a reaction, I would think. 156 at 155. Another Mark Mann, whoever he is, he's just made the move. But if I'm going to have a go at thinking who it is, I'd go for Alexander Pichu or Yuri Trofimov. One of those two are the most likely to try that.
A move here by Vladimir Efimkin. Now, he is the rider who has been in the original group of 10.
Points,
and right now, Phil, he's always been sitting at the back of this group. This is not a move for the points. I think this is a move here to try and get himself a lone victory. Let's not forget, sadly for Efimkin, he won a stage in the Tour de France last year, and hardly anybody knows at all about it, because he finished second on the stage into Bagnères de Bigorre, which is not far away from where we are here, behind Ricardo Rico. Ricardo Rico was later disqualified from that victory because he was found to have had the blood doping.
Yeah, that's right. Well, he will have been told in his race radio that the yellow jersey has recovered and is now okay with the leaders again. So he's not endangering the situation now by having a little dig. He's gone about 1.5 kilometers from the summit, I think, at the moment. But it looks as though Astolosa is recovering here with Sanchez, and they've got rid of Sandy Cassar at the same time. So the attack was worth it.
It certainly was worth it, but the Spanish riders, I don't think you're going to get rid of them quite so easily here this afternoon as they pull themselves back up to Efimkin. And they will be a little bit annoyed by that. They will have found a bit of anger to chase down that man, because when somebody's been sitting behind you for as much as 100 kilometres, then you... well, he's going again. He's not
whatever
bothered.
They said, he was offended, so he's off again now. That's the second attack. He took a good look at the face there of Astolosa. It's been a mask of pain for about an hour and a half, in fact. It's not just happened, and it looks like Astolosa is still digging deep and dragging Sanchez across to him once again.
You know, a couple of years ago in 2007, the man in second place there in the orange jersey, Astolosa, he finished in 9th place overall in the Tour de France. So he will not be scared about these big mountains, and he will not be too scared at all about the attacks coming from Vladimir Efimkin. He knows that he can stay in contact with him. And the one who's actually struggling on the front end of his saddle is Luis Leon Sanchez, and he just wants to get over the top of this climb in contact with the group.
Well, there's inspiration. The Basque flag flying on the left of the road for Astolosa, who rides for a Basque team. And he's done a lot of work here. Sanchez just wants him to drag him along in the hope he can win the finish down in Saint-Giron. Once over the top, 44 kilometers to run to the finish. And all of it is downhill. So then the speed merchants will try to get them back.
1 kilometer to go to the summit of the climb. That's going to take them 3 or 4 minutes. And again, Vladimir Efimkin getting out of the saddle. Luis Leon Sanchez there, I think, about to give him a couple of words.
Two leaders likely to change tonight. The King of the Mountains jersey should switch across to Cofidis Christoph Kern. And the green jersey held by Mark Cavendish now for about 5 days. That will swing across to Thor Hushoff, who got the early points in the sprint competition to move ahead there. And just look at this. The boys in blue, they don't even lead the Tour de France, but you'd think they would the way they ride it. Leipheimer on the left of our picture. Dead centre is Lance Armstrong. Over far right, we just seen peeping in is Alberto Contador. David Miller has come back into the thick of the action. So we have Miller, and we also have Wiggins riding in the ride of his tour ride of his life. Andy Schleck has slipped to the back, but he's not in trouble.
With the red number on his back, the most aggressive rider of yesterday, Christophe Riblon. He was in the breakaway for a long time, and He's struggling to stay in contact here.
It's a pity he's not in the break again, because he will be back in the lead in the King of the Mountains. But the big points are going still with those 4 riders up front, at least 4 riders up front at the moment. But you know, this infighting, they've eased off the gas. It's 2:20 now. There's Wiggins riding right on the side of some of the finest climbers in the world. And this is a man with 2 Olympic medals on the trip.
Going by him to try and get himself maximum points. Now, he will have amassed a fair number of points on the race route here this afternoon as well. So he goes over the top there, Phil, to get maximum points ahead of Sanchez and Efemkin in 3rd place. Now, with 2.5 minutes advantage over the top of this climb with 44 kilometers to go, those 3 riders have got a very good chance of surviving, because I'm not sure who is going to chase them on the descent.
Well, just looking here at the pack, they've turned off completely on this steady climb. The clock is now counting on the leaders over the top. They're not really chasing. I think it'll be 2.5 minutes before these boys get over the summit. That'll be the gap for the last 44 kilometers to the finish. As I say, the contours make it look like a plunge into the valley, back down to the Ariège River and in to Saint-Giron. We're past through the town. It's a bit narrow in the town, but they weren't expecting a big bunch sprint to charge through. And then they go out onto the outskirts, the Avenue de la Résistance, and that's computers indicating that the green jersey of Mark Cavendish is in the peloton. Well, I can assure you it isn't. Paul Mark was in trouble today at the start of the climb of the Envalira. He's got to come home inside the time limit. That's the first problem of the day. I hope he will do that, and I'm sure he will. He's a fighter. But it means today, because of the small sprint victories out on course by Thor Hushoff, he took 12 points today early on when he was up with the front runners. And as a result of that, he is now the new green jersey wearer by 11 points. 2:42, I think it was, over the top, Paul.
Yep, 2:42, 2:41. That was Haimar Zubeldia of Team Astana leading them over the summit of the climb. And now they're just going to cruise down the descent. Now, the main field here, they won't take too many risks on the run-in here, because this is rather a precarious, dangerous descent. You can see the road surface is made of gravel, but every now and again, Phil, because of the heat today, the tar has melted.
Just look at this.
Is going to get himself back.
He's dropped off on the way up, but he's going to descend like a maniac to get himself on the way down. He's got a speed wobble on there. The cars are seeing him coming. They're moving out the way. He's past the chief referee's car now. Just the brake is in front. Sandy Kassar is back in the frame here, and he's won stages from breakaways before in this part of the world, so he'll be up there very, very shortly. Well, just look at the style of this man on the way down. Slams those brakes on to get round the corner. Astalos is attacking him. He knows he's coming back. Sanchez, not too sure whether he wants to take this up. Efemkin doesn't really care. He's dropped into 3rd place, and that's what he intends to say. Stand by for the white tornado going past our camera. There he is. And so we're on our way. Well, that's the end of our Nature Valley commercial-free half hour. We'll just take a short break. We'll be back, and it looks like we're heading for the finish with 4 riders against the Armstrong Cup. Been another great race today, hasn't it? There he is, Paul. George Hincapie on the descent. We're not sure where he is, but I think he's coming back to the leaders.
Yes, the race situation, there's still 4 riders off the front. Astroloza, Efemkin, Sandy Kassar and Luis Leon Sanchez. Hincapie is lying in 5th place on the road. He was tailed off just before the summit of the climb, and he is one of the great descenders of the sport, so he will take great risks, use a lot of power to try and get himself back up to those leading 4. We're given information that he's at 1 minute and 15 seconds, but that is the kind of gap, Phil, you can wipe away on a technical descent.
Well, it was an advantage the boys up front because they're all good climbers, but put George downhill and on the flat, and this man can ride a time trial on his own. So they're not safe now, that's for sure.
No, and they will probably know that George Hincapie is on his way back. He's halfway between the leading group of 4 and the main field, who are still just inside of 3 minutes in arrears. If George Hincapie makes the contact with this group of 5, I wonder if Lance Armstrong will get Team Astana to chase him down.
He mustn't, because they're still the best of friends, but they're on rival teams. teams. It must be very strange for them both in many ways, because George Hincapie was always on the team with Lance Armstrong. Once Lance retired, George got his own team, which he's very happy with, and now he's actually Lance's rival on the bike.
But it's the first time, Phil, they've ever ridden the Tour de France on opposing teams in the whole of their careers, both of them.
That's absolutely right. So the sun is right over the head here of Sandy Cassar, who has raced himself back into this race today. I've got a feeling this breakaway will succeed, because why chase it down? It's a status quo back in that main field now. The pressure is off. If AG2R want to chase it down, the boys will follow. Otherwise, it'll run to the finish. And Lance Armstrong is not going to worry about the whereabouts of Nocentini. They've seen now they can crack him in the Pyrenees. Maybe try again tomorrow. So as the race continues, let me remind you of the chalk bot, Nike chalk bot. This is, we just ran over. If you saw that writing on the road, that was where the riders just passed, and you can be part of this. The chalk bot could be writing your messages on certain stages throughout the Tour de France. To find out more, just go to wearyellow.com and get your message on the road. And we're looking at the moment of George Hincapie leaning into that corner, desperately trying to get across that gap of a minute. So he's just about, he's about half a mile, I suppose, behind those leaders. So he's got a bit of work to do, but time is on his side. He's about 38 kilometers to go, something like that. This is the high-speed descent now of the leaders of the Tour de France, well, the main field of the Tour de France, as they continue a regular descent. They're not pedalling and pushing to the limits here. No point in taking risks to chase down four riders who are not changing the destiny at the moment of the yellow jersey. The big interest is whether George Hincapie can cross the gap and make the most of it.
Well, he will do everything he can. He'll take massive risks going around the corners, but he really needs to get himself to around about 30 or 40 seconds before he gets to the Valley Road, because once they go onto the flat part of the course and they're running down towards the finish line here in Saint-Giron, you will see that group of four riders at the front start to work together, setting the pacemaking, and that makes it very difficult for one man to come across on his own.
These are the four leaders. Luis Leon Sanchez won in Aurillac last year, his first ever stage win in the Tour de France, the only one he's had. He's flicking his arm now, asking Sandy Cassar to take up the running. Well, Sandy will work well. They all know that George Hincapie is coming, and they all well know the capability of that rider. Boy, there are some famous faces from the Tour de France there,
including Daniel Monjas, the speaker, just up at the top there. He's been on the Tour de France for more than 30 years, Daniel Monjas. He was commentating when I was riding.
He was indeed, and what a brilliant brain he's got on knowing all the bike riders, and they all know him as well. Asta Loza still setting the pace here. Long, straight, good tarmac road this. Cassar on the nose. Well, these four leaders have just gone under the 5-kilometer banner. Their lead has come down to 1 minute and 32 seconds, but they're not going to get brought back. And at some stage, somebody's going to have to attack. After three, there he goes. He's the first one to go. And you could almost preempt that for Mikel Astalosa. Cassar was paying attention. A little bit of deep digging required from Efekine and from Sanchez.
Well, Cassar was very attentive, straight onto the wheel of the Spaniard. They've got a slight gap there, and Efekine, despite the fact that he's had an armchair ride here this afternoon, Phil, has let the gap go.
You're absolutely right. He opened the gap, but Sanchez has quickly closed it. Attack number one. Now then, where's the next one coming from? Again, I would expect Cassar to start attacking, and it's Efekine. Efekine has been brought back, takes the inside. Sandy Cassar said, I'm not going now. That's a fatal mistake.
That is a fatal mistake to allow him. He should have gone straight away to get himself onto the wheel of Efekine, because Efekine, as I said, Phil, is the rider who is the most rested of this breakaway this afternoon. He's been sitting on. These three guys have been working like Trojans. They need to nail him back very quickly, because if he gets himself 10 or 15 seconds, it's goodbye Vienna.
And the reason he appeared to have blown up there when the split came originally, he had Sanchez on his wheel, and he wanted Sanchez to come round him and take him back to the two leaders, so he had the strength to attack. A very, very clever move. That's how he did it. He launched it on the inside, and this time Cassar was looking the wrong way, and he looks at the other two to take it up. Two Spanish riders chase.
Well, that's what he said probably now. Efekine has not got to look back at this point. He's just got to get himself into the zone. and he's got to concentrate. Look how far forward he is on the saddle. He's trying to keep that big gear going as much as possible. Luis Leon Sanchez made the first part of the move, and now these three riders, they're all seasoned professionals, Phil. They're still prepared to work together. Now that is a good move by those three, because they start looking at each other saying, no, you take me up to Effenkin, then they will not catch him. But they are working as a solid block.
We're looking at a rider here who's moving off now. We must not forget he finished 10th overall in the Tour de France last year. He's got a different role to play this year, and 2 years ago he was on the podium in the Vuelta a España, where he also won a stage and wore the jersey for 4 days as leader of the Tour of Spain. So this boy has a lot of power in that body, and he's gone now and is dragging away. Well, it's going to be possibly a perfect day for Team AG2R, because Nocentini got himself back into the race. He'll keep his yellow tonight, and this rider is trying to now take the first prize back home and say, well, I can do well too.
Well, he's sitting right on the front of his saddle, keeping a massive gear, taking over. He'll be in probably the largest gear that he's got. He's in the streets now of Saint-Giron. He will be looking for the 2 kilometre to go banner, then the 1 kilometre to go banner. I think, though, Phil, they're slowly starting to draw him back here inside of 2Ks.
Well, the trouble is, at 2 kilometres to go, they're going to look to each other, and that's a fatal move, because he just edges out another second, because they don't want to give all their energy to catch, knowing that the other two will go round. So it's been left to Astolosa to try and bring them back, and that puts Sanchez probably in the driving seat. Very sharp left-hander here, and in the centre of the town now. We'll circumnavigate it and head out towards the finishing line. Brave move, but it had to come. And I must say that Astolosa has been a powerhouse today.
Well, Luis Leon Sanchez nodding his head a fraction there, not very happy at all with the situation, but still, these three seasoned professionals, these guys have been pros for an awful long time. Cassar on the front has been a professional since '99. They are still prepared to do the work, and they've got to keep going if they want to pull this man back, because he's opening up the gap once again. He's got maybe 3 seconds lead over them.
Vladimir Effenkin is now revving at the limit of his ability, but the boys can't get across. The breakaway has been a long, hot one through the mountains today. Sanchez, who's been trying desperately to save himself for the finish, has got to commit now. He's got to gamble on taking the 2 riders with him, because I think he's the only one who could catch up.
Well, he's done a long turn there, and he's pulled himself back to within around about 25 metres.
1 kilometre to go, the roundabout, and then we're into the avenue for the finish here. Astolosa's gone down on the left. He's up again. They're close, they're ever so close. Cassar knows how close they are, but he's not going to shut it down by himself. The minute they catch this rider, one of the others will go. And now it's slightly uphill here.
They're slowing down now. They've got to keep going. They dare not even slow down a fraction here, because if they do, the advantage will go to Vladimir Effenkin. Luis Leon Sanchez has nailed it back again. It's only 20-30 metres, but until they get to his slipstream, it's advantage Effenkin.
Well, Vladimir Effenkin, he won a stage of the Tour last year, but that was on the disqualification from the Tour de France of Ricardo Rico. So he hasn't officially ever won a stage yet. But there's still, look at the speed now, Sanchez. He's going to have to bury himself and risk taking 2 of the riders to the line. Desperate moments here, also for Vladimir Effenkin. Sandy Cassar has waited. Sanchez tempted and has swept over the top of him. And now Sandy Cassar is trying to repeat the feat of Ongoing as he races up. Now they're kicked by Luis Leon Sanchez. Shades of Aurillac a year ago, as he finally has done it. He's got his win, deserves it. What a gamble, and he's won.
Well, he played a very good tactical game there, Phil, on the run in towards the finish. He used his energy when he could, and he slowly clawed his way back to Effenkin and the main fielder in the streets of Saint-Giron as well. But that was a well-timed sprint by Luis Leon Sanchez. He picked this stage out a long time ago, and he came up with the goods. For a moment there, I thought maybe Sandy Cassar was going to pull one over on him, but you know, I have to say, and I said it a little bit earlier on, that man Luis Leon Sanchez is a real class act.
Well, that was a terrific ride, and he didn't look on until those last few 100 metres. Feel sorry a little bit for Vladimir Effenkin, but he wasn't the workhorse in the break. We're now back to the main group here. The only coloured jersey missing is the green one of Mark Cavendish. That will go over to Thor Hushovd today, but the other leaders' jerseys are in the pack, which means they will all get the same time. Here's the police and the escorts now taking the winner today, Luis Leon Sanchez, around the back to get ready for the prize presentation. Big victory for Kees de Pont. How ironic, when we leave the Spanish-speaking nations, he goes and wins in France, but that's the way the Tour goes. Christophe Moreau on the far left in the blue jersey. Cadel Evans also keeping out of trouble, also on the far left. Probably saw that Australian flag as well.
All of the main contenders, Phil, in this group this afternoon. Another little taste of the mountain for them. There's Lance Armstrong in the black and yellow helmet, just at the back of the pack. Not taking any risks today, but every time it looked as if the race was going to be dangerous, he came up to the front end of the pack.
So they're opening up the sprint here for the line now, but I must say that there are no sprinters apparent at the head of this field, so it could be a little bit of a free-for-all. These boys are spinning for the 5th place, so there are green points. There's also prizes down the top 25, and so they're just going to go. This Gutierrez is coming up on the left. Either way, they're going to hit the line all together. He's very happy because the same team as Sanchez just wiped up from the bunch sprint as well, but they're all in, all the same time. There's still a blanket over the first 3 riders in this year's Tour de France.
Yeah, all the major contenders in there, Phil. Contador, Armstrong, all of the men who are at the top end of the overall classification. The guys sprinting out for 5th, 6th and 7th place were some of the lesser riders who were still looking to get themselves a little bit of glory, because it's always good for somebody to finish in the top 10 of a stage of the Tour de France. Let's have a look at this one more time, because this was a very clever move by Luis Leon Sanchez. At this point, they could not waver at all in their desire to catch the man at the front, Vladimir Efimkin. They were still sharing turns. They were all, fortunately, serious professional bike riders who've been around for quite some time. This is the move that probably gave the win to Luis Leon Sanchez. He sacrificed himself there. He didn't care whether or not he was going to drag anyone back up, because he knew if he didn't chase Efimkin at this time, he was racing for 2nd place.
And now he was tempting Cassar to come past him here so he could get into his slipstream. Sadly, I think should have waited just that split second. It might have been a different result, but no, he carried on taking the run for the line. That was perfect for Sanchez, saving 30% of his energy, sitting behind him there and waiting till the last moment to charge over the top. And he'd be happy. I think it was Rojas, his teammate, who came up with the bunch sprint victory for 5th place. So there's the situation at the moment at the end, looking out to the snow, still on the tops there of the Pyrenees, and remember, on the highest of them all tomorrow, the Col de Tourmalet. There's the sprint victory for Luis Sanchez. I tell you what, Bob Roll will be happy. We'll take a break. The stage results as we saw them. There they are. The first 4 were in. The winning margin over teammate of Sanchez, Rojas, 1 minute 54. Rojas led them home. So Kees de Pont did well here today, that's to say the least. See if we can show you a few more places here. Christophe Riblan, who's in the mountains in the breakaway yesterday, shows he can sprint as well with a 6th place. Peter Velits used to be a teammate, by the way, of Vladimir Efimkin. He was also in at the result there today. Arvidsson, we saw attack on the road. He was 14th. Anybody else? Yes, Brice Feliu in his polka dot jersey finished 17th. He is going to be a good rider, isn't he? Cloden of Team Astana 19th. Andy Schleck, all the same time. That's what's important. 1 minute 54. Armstrong was in this group as well, as were Cadel Evans, Bradley Wiggins, Frank Schleck, Levi Leipheimer and Alberto Contador. Will the giant Col de Tourmalet give a decision and perhaps a new yellow jersey when they come down to the finish in Tarbes? This is the beautiful Chateau of Valmiron, private ownership. The guy who built this was only 23 years of age when he decided to buy it, and it was only built as recently as 1893. This is where the riders head to today. They're coming to Tarbes in the High Pyrenees. But the man in yellow today, and he had to fight yesterday to hold it, is Rinaldo Nocentini, Paul, in his first Tour de France.
Well, these are the men who are chasing him. Alberto Contador is the closest, Phil, at just 6 seconds. 2 seconds further back is Lance Armstrong. Levi Leipheimer is only 4th at 39 seconds. Van der Velde and Schleck are in the top 10 as well, and Cadel Evans has got a lot to make up in 18th place.
Well, let's start as usual with our Nature Valley stage reset and go down to the start this morning in the beautiful town of Saint-Gaudens, another Pyrenean village here. And the start for 172 riders. In yellow is Nocentini, new green jersey wearer in Torhashop, new polka dot in Christophe Kern as they headed out to the start. As always, Paul, as soon as that flag comes in, there's an attack.
There's one thing you can't say about the Tour de France this year. There is a lack of aggression, because every day from the gun, as they say in this jargon of cycling, the attacks come thick and fast, and the reason for that is to try and get a breakaway. A breakaway did form, and Mr. Lance Armstrong was sitting comfortably in the main pack, but he wasn't happy, Phil, about the size of the breakaway going clear.
Saxo Bank had a rider in it, in fact, Jens Voigt. Lance Armstrong decided there's only one way to stop this: do it yourself.
Well, sometimes when you're the boss, you've got to come out and show the rest of the team that you've got the form and you've got the ability to get across and close everything down.
And he did just that. Well, that's on Nature Valley Stage Reset. Now we'll go to live pictures here, as the riders are still 120 kilometres to go. Enjoy these pictures. They are in high definition. If you're not watching in high definition, please check your listings to find out how you can go about that. Rider update: 172 today. We lost a couple of riders yesterday of 180, and 13 teams still intact. On the pulse, we've got the 3 riders wide up here: Anke Sorensen, Brian Van Borg and Remy Poriol. We'll check in on theirs. There is a shot of the finishing line. It is 97 degrees Fahrenheit right now. It is an absolute scorcher today, and these boys are going to climb the tallest mountains in the Pyrenees.
This is the first sprint point of the day, Phil. They're going through the town here of Saint-Colin. I don't think there'll be a major race for those points here, because these guys are a long way down in the overall classification. The best placed rider is the man in the lime green jersey there, Franco Pellizotti. He lost a little bit of time yesterday on the big mountain passes.
Well, they got away. They reformed the break after Lance Armstrong himself took the leaders, brought the leaders back to heel, and these 4 obviously to his liking a bit better. Best placed is Franco Pellizotti, 15 minutes 23 behind, so it's an ideal day to take the pressure off the peloton for the moment. As they get to the sprint, 119 kilometres left to ride here, but no real sprint at all. That's where we are. We're going to go steady uphill. The first category climb we're about to hit is the Col d'Aspin. Paul Sherwin knows it with real feeling of pain. He's climbed it many times. And then we come down that, and it's always the gateway to the climb of the Col du Tourmalet.
Well, there's 2 minutes and 15 seconds back to the main field, and it's going out all of the time. The reason for that is those 4 riders are not at all dangerous in the overall concept of the race, but they are about to start one of the climbs that was introduced to the Tour de France way back in 1910. Both the Col d'Aspin and the Col du Tourmalet were introduced in that year.
Yes, the first year we went into the Tour de France, into the high mountains, and they're all around us today. This is a valley road, but you can look left and right. You'll see the big climbs. 2:23 is the gap. 4 riders up front. We've now set the scene for what will be probably about another 3 3/4 hours in the saddle. It looks as though AG2R have got regained control here. The maillot jaune of Rinaldo Nocentini, there he is, was at the back of the race moments ago. He obviously had a mechanical problem. His team have brought him back and put him right back on the front. Nicholas Roach there with a bottle in his hand, the Irishman, son of Stephen Roach, winner of the Tour de France in 1987.
He's in a white jersey there with the clover leaf on it, an indication that he's the national champion of Ireland, the title which he won just 1 week before the start of the Tour de France. Little chat at the back. There's yesterday's stage winner, and what a magical tactician he was too. He played that, Phil, card right down to the perfection, even into the last 300 metres.
So just the hot days, riders getting drinks. They're facing up to 2 big climbs. And this is not a first category climb, Paul. It sometimes is given a second category tag. Why is that?
Well, the thing is, there are 2 sides to the Col d'Aspin. This is actually the longer, harder side that the riders are going over. It's usually classified as a second category when they come up from the other side, which is a shorter ascent. This is a very long climb on this side over the Col d'Aspin, with a very tricky descent going down the other side into the small town, which is very famous, the town of Sainte-Marie de Campin, made famous by the fact that I've forgotten his name. Christophe.
Eugene Christophe.
He actually broke his forks and stopped at the side of the road to fix them. Now, he fixed them on his own, but he was later disqualified because he had somebody actually operating the bellows.
That's absolutely right. That was an awful long time ago. This is the modern-day Tour de France now, as the peloton are lining up for that right-hand turn in Arreau to get onto the Col d'Aspin. And there's a little information, 5.6 kilometres for the peloton, so they're over half a kilometre down at the moment on the climb. Voigt, Pellizotti, Duque, Fedrigo, they were the survivors of a rapid start again. These 4 getting clear of the field. I thought they would be allowed to run and get about 6 or 7 minutes, but I have to say that the reaction from the field in fighting has brought this gap down to 4:23. Just looking here now, the Euskaltel Skadi boys, this is their playground, the high mountains. After the rest day tomorrow, of course, the flat roads, they'll take a back seat in the peloton and await the Alps, I would think. They've moved clear. They're the second group on the road, the peloton. Jürgen van der Broek, the Kees de Pan rider, is in between. The yellow jersey is beginning to look like a real leader of the Tour right now. We didn't see much of him yesterday, Rinaldo Nocentini. But he's got one teammate looking after him on the front of the bunch, and Katusha have decided that they want to put a man in the front as well now. This will be the first teammate going away for Katusha. Getting some idea of the height now as we continue the ascent of the Col d'Aspin. Well, there's Vladimir Karpic, who's gone through on the inside of Ferreira da Costa, who's riding his first Tour de France. He must have wondered what on earth went through there then. And there's Cofidis going, and bound to be David Moncoutier, I would think. So as we're watching here now, the riders go. This is Armel Mouana, who actually rode very well yesterday and finished at the front end of the big pack that came down into Saint-Giron.
Actually, I had an email off somebody the other night saying, where is Armel Mouana in the race? Because they couldn't find his name in the race results yesterday. And, well, we don't have to worry too much because here he is, Phil, at the front of the pack.
Well, they didn't have far to look because he was right up the front end of the race yesterday. But there we are.
Leonardo Duque has actually just been dropped by the three leaders. Not a surprise, really, because Duque, the Colombian rider, is not one of the great Colombian climbers. In fact, he's a very good Colombian sprinter. So obviously got that little allergy that most sprinters do have to the mountains.
Most unusual to get a rider out of Colombia who can sprint and not climb, I can tell you. Jens Voigt is setting the tempo at the front, and he's keeping the pressure on Steph Clement here on the way through. Well, this is a Spanish champion, former Spanish champion, Juan Manuel Garate.
Well, this may well be the day that Denny Menchov tries to pull himself back up into the higher end of the overall classification. Certainly, I am surprised, Phil, to see the attacks coming on this climb, because I had expected things to warm up on the next climb of the day. As we can just check here, still the yellow jersey is represented. Going through there is Haimar Zubeldia. He's a great rider that has been brought across here to Team Astana.
Suffered a little bit towards the end of the race yesterday, Zubeldia, but he did his job well for Astana. A lot of pressure on that team to try and control the head of the peloton. But the boys have come out today deciding to hit out and try and nail Astana to the mast today. And it's good to see they're not afraid of a mass demonstration by just one team. As we look here now, there's the yellow jersey still on the front, led by Silence Lotter. We'll have to take another break, but when we come back, we'll still be on the Col d'Aspin.
And these are the three leaders, and they're not too far away. I would put them at around about 200 or 300 meters from the summit of the Aspin, which should theoretically be just around the corner.
Marvellous crowd right on top of this beautiful mountain. It's today's a very pleasant day to come and watch the Tour on the Aspin, and it's going to be Pelozzotti, followed by Fedrigo and Jens Voigt in that order over the summit. I don't think they'll force the descent. They'll be sensible going down. They drop down to the feeding zone, where people take on their little food bags, and then they'll start the climb of the Col de Tourmaline. He's taking on his food a bit early here, Paul. Don't blame him.
Well, no, it's very important to do that on a mountain stage, and a lot of riders actually forget to eat on a mountain stage, and we've seen riders hit the wall, get glucose exhaustion because they've forgotten to eat. And it's difficult to eat because there's not too many places where you can actually get solid food down. You certainly can't where these riders are on the slopes of the climb, so you have to, as soon as you go over the summit, get whatever's in your back pocket and try and get it down as quickly as possible.
Hard work being done by Chiruka here to try and get Igor Martinez good points up there to nose that little bit closer to the polka dot leader's jersey in the King of the Mountains. He's searching for 5 points to go level at the top, so 6 will give him the lead. We've had 3 over. We've had no pictures at all of Leonardo Duque, but he has to be ahead of these riders, and so these reasons, because this is a spin for the polka dot jersey today. He'll get the points he requires to take the lead in the King of the Mountains. Igor Martinez has gone over in 6th place.
He wasn't taking any prisoners with that. 5th place, I think, Phil, actually, because Duque was 4th over the summit.
Sorry,
that'll give him 8 points, and he will now grab the lead in the King of the Mountains classification. classification, but let's not forget there are an awful lot of points available at the summit of the Col de Tourmalet, because it's the last climb of the day. It's an outside categorized climb, which normally gets 20, but it will be doubled on this occasion. So 40 points for the first man over the top.
Ooh. Well, hang on, here comes the actual, he's being attacked here by Bryce Feliu and Christophe Kern have gone over, but I don't think they get any points because there were 9 riders in that group.
Yeah,
so they're still fighting out. They won't know, of course, how many actual riders are ahead, will they?
No, they won't, but they were still, just in case, going to try and get themselves across the line. There's David Miller on the left.
So the first change of leadership of the day, it's in the King of the Mountains, and the gap is 3:17. So as we watch them now come over the top of the Col de Tourmalet, 1 or 2 riders are going to make desperate plunges off this mountain today, drop it down to the feeding station, which is down in the bottom at Sainte-Marie-de-Campan, very famous village in the history of the Tour de France. Vandenbroek, who really is a good climber, he's up front as well because of Cadel Evans, who's being kept captive of the bunch. Paulino, Garate, Tendam, Martinez, Chiruca, these are all the riders, Moncoutier and Voigtler. Voigtler got across himself, but it's a while back now, and now Bouet's joined here.
Yes, but the main field has started to pick up the pace because they're only 45 seconds behind this group, and that's an indication that once again AG2R are riding a very sensible tempo. Over on the left-hand side, David Moncoutier, the man in the middle there, Egoy Martinez, he wants this group to stay clear over the summit of the climb because he's already taken over the lead in the King of the Mountains classification, and if he can get himself a huge bunch of points at the top of this climb, he could hold on to that King of the Mountains jersey all the way through to the Alps.
Well, a 4th place would be a huge number of points, but if he could catch the leaders, he'd get 40 for being first over the top of the mountain. And that would ensure reasonable long-term tenure of the polka dot jersey.
We're just coming into the outskirts, Phil, now of the town of La Mongie. It's a ski resort. It's at around about 1,800 meters over to the left-hand side. And it's got incredible views from this part of the world, and just at the top there you can notice the high spot is the Pic du Midi de Bigorre.
Well, we're looking now at the leaders of the Tour de France and the Col de Tourmalet. There were 4 of them at the bottom. They got rid of Leonardo Duque. The Lance Armstrong and Nocentini group have always hovered around the 4-minute mark, and no one attacked all day yet from that group to bridge the gap. These are the 2 leaders. 4:34 on the Nocentini Armstrong Contador group. Bradley Wiggins is in there as well, continuing a terrific ride in the Pyrenees, that English rider. But now as we get into La Mongie, the road doesn't look very steep from a helicopter, but believe me, it is very steep just here.
Well, as they go right through the middle of town, that's where it actually kicks up to an excess of 9% gradient. The 2 leaders now are getting into that part of the course. This leaves them filled with around about 5.5 kilometers to go to the top. But once you get out of La Mongie, it always seems to me that this course and this climb tend to get that little bit steeper.
A little bit less for the man on the front. That's 4.5 Ks for these as they continue up now on the steep climb. It's 74 kilometers done, 70 once they're over the top. There's the crowd, and this is one of the riders who's been in trouble at the back all day. It's David Miller now, but if David isn't, I don't think he's in trouble here, Paul. He's just taking on drinks, and he's continuing his fine ride in the Pyrenees as well.
Well, as they say in cycling jargon, he's doing the job for the boys here this afternoon. He's looking after his teammate and compatriot to Bradley Wiggins, who starts today in 5th place overall, which really is quite phenomenal, and his teammate Christian van der Velde is in 8th at 1 minute 24 seconds. David had a bad day a couple of days ago, but since then he seems to have recovered from that long escapade he made on the road into Barcelona, where for 1 kilometer he could have been a stage winner in the Tour de France 2009.
So unlucky. Maybe today. 4:37 of the gap at the moment. Franco Pelazzotti, 3rd in the Giro d'Italia. And he said, I'm going to the Tour de France for a podium finish. And this is the first time we've seen him. And we've been going 9 days, but he's here now.
And he's looking very calm and collected. Eric Fredrigo, the rider we're looking at here, Phil, number 144, he's actually had a pretty good season as well. He won a stage in the 4 days of Dunkirk, but maybe more importantly, he won one of the big mountain stages in the Dauphiné Libéré, and on his way to get that victory, he picked up the King of the Mountains classification.
Yes, and that's a much better pointer, of course, than the race in Belgium on the French-Belgian borders. Now, what have we got here? This is thinning out a little bit now as Garate is turning the screw. Martinez, he's third down, centre there with the little goatee beard. He wants that group back and gets the maximum points, and then he'll have a really solid lead in the King of the Mountain. Moncoutier, I think, might try something as well. It is definitely now, it's obvious by the way they're riding, Paul, they are not going to hammer home an attack. 70 kilometres to go to the finish. It's just not worth the risk of wasting so much energy.
Just a quick glance at the heart rate monitors. Chris Sorensen is at 173 beats a minute now, Phil. That's up to 90% probably of his maximum, and his wattage that he's putting out is 340. That really is starting to get just a little bit painful.
Inigo Cuesta, the oldest man in the race at 40 years and 1 month, and he's still riding well. Don't crack now, Inigo, you're nearly up there. And there's the man just getting a nice push there that won the stage yesterday.
No, that was actually Rojas. It was 117.
Okay.
And he's the man who won the sprint for 5th place yesterday on the stage.
That's right, he was. And the great difficulty, the 1s and the 7s on the race numbers look very, very similar this year in the Tour de France, but this certainly is the leader of Liquigas, Pelazzotti. Just listen to the noise here. We're on the Col de Tourmalet, 3.1 kilometres to the summit. Pelazzotti, Fedrigo on the mountain today than there are any other nationality. We're not far from Spain, of course.
Well, you can actually probably walk to Spain from here. 1 kilometre to the summit there is the banner for these two riders, and they're going to go over the summit here with around about a 5-minute advantage over the front end of the main field.
1 kilometre to the summit for the two leaders. They've led all the way through the mountains today. There's the flag of Norway. There's the two in the lead. Let me remind you, we're enjoying a half hour free from commercials thanks to Chrysler today as we head up towards the summit of the Col de Tourmalet. Not far now for these boys. Well, the parting of the noise here, the waters are parting as an Italian leads a Frenchman. The French are having a rather good tour, Paul.
They're having probably the best tour that they've had for a number out of it, with 2-stage victories, leads in the King of the Mountains classification, and I think it's not over yet because Peric Fedrigo is going to be a difficult man to beat if those riders at the front survive. Armstrong's face doesn't give anything away, does it? You can turn the clock back 4 years and it's almost exactly the same.
This man is so settled and is feeling this will just get this one out of the way, then we'll get down to the finish, we'll have a shower and jump on the plane and fly up to Limoges, rest day tomorrow, and then we'll start for a couple of days at least a different type of stages in the Tour de France. It is a big field. This looks like we've got problems here because this is Sylvain Chavanel. Now where is he? Back?
He's trying
down
to get
the
back.
cars. Do you think he's coming back from a problem?
I think he's just trying to get himself back into into contact with the main field. He's obviously had a little bit of a hard time. The second group on the road is at 2 minutes and 58 seconds.
Nicholas Roach back on the front now. We go back to 1987 when Dad was doing the same thing, dancing on the pedals to victory in Paris, in fact. First and only Irish cyclist to win the Tour.
These two guys just making their way through, looking across here.
I can't remember such a long line of people watching, Paul. This is pretty much one of the best crowds we've seen on the Col de Tourmalet.
No,
of course, the interest in the Tour de France, as we're being told, is not there anymore.
Well, what you have to understand when you see a crowd like this, Phil, this climb was probably closed yesterday. The majority of these people actually camped out up here to be on the side of the road to watch the race, but also anybody else would have had to come up on foot during the course of the day.
Good day, Suzanne. That's got to be from an Australian. So there you are, Suzanne. 4:43. That was the German flag on the left of the road. We ran into people from Luxembourg yesterday. Well, I don't suppose they remember us because they had rather a lot to drink when we met them. But terrific atmosphere. Memories of the great pirate, Marco Pantani, the last man to win the double of the Giro d'Italia and the Tour de France in the same year. It was 1998. There's the regional flag of Brittany, the black flag there. They're all here today. What an atmosphere.
It really is phenomenal. This is a great third day in the Pyrenees before we set up for a well-earned rest day for all of these riders. But, you know, actually, the riders don't really enjoy a rest day because it breaks up the rhythm quite a bit.
And that was the Union flag of Great Britain there on the right as well. The chase group 1 kilometre. They're not going to catch those two leaders, that's for sure now. But the grimace there of the third rider, he's the leader of the King of the Mountains, but Igor Martinez looks to be as though he's really struggling at the moment. He wants so much, of course, to deliver the best of the rest and get the most points he can pocket. And at the minute, it would be third place on the mountain.
And that's important for him, and he will give everything he can. This is the summit of the Col de Tourmalet field, just around the corner, and a big acceleration coming from Pellizotti.
Yeah, Pellizotti, I think he was the strong man on the climb, so Fedrigo is not going to take the pleasure off him. Same order as over the Col d'Aspin. So Pellizotti is over the top. The clock will start. Now it's 70 kilometers, most of it downhill or flat. In fact, it's all downhill or flat right now. We plunge down a narrow section this way down the Col de Tourmalet. It's a bit of a dicey descent for a few kilometers.
And bear in mind, there's no safety net here. You can just see if you get one of these corners wrong, it's an awful long way down to the valley floor below, and these riders know that, and they won't take too many risks.
Well, they just turn left here, then you go down a long straight. You could easily hit 100 kilometers an hour down here, and then you start to hit the bends again. So you've got to make sure your brakes work, but they're being sensible.
For the first 3 kilometers, it's very technical like this with a number of hairpin bends, but once you've got past that first 3 kilometers of the descent, the road becomes a lot straighter and a lot more sweeping bends.
Now, this is the interesting sprint here to see if Igor Martinez can get the third place. He's in second wheel at the moment, behind Garate. And third place for him will give him a nice lead in the Giro d'Italia, in the Tour de France today. Ex-teammate of Lance Armstrong, by the way. He now rides for the Euskaltel-Euskadi team. What will he get for third place?
He'll get 32 points for third place.
Yep.
I have doubled them up. 16 he did normally, doubled up to 32. He's already got 62 points total with the points that he got just a little bit earlier on. So he will be hyper motivated to come out of this pack and try and get himself the points.
Well, you know, he's really struggling here to hang on. These two are riding away. Garate quickly replaced behind by Jurgen van den Broek. So it does look as though the new King of the Mountains is in trouble on the big mountain of the Col de Tourmalet.
Well, Garate here really is stamping out a very vicious pace as he comes up to the top of this climb. But don't worry too much, I don't think, for Igor Martinez. He will find something special here to try and make sure he stays well within the points, although it's Moncoutier who's coming across there.
What a great level of mountains are. As now Garate takes them up towards third place. Jurgen van den Broek is marking him. David Moncoutier is in his shadow, and then comes Igor Martinez, so he'll still keep the lead in the King of the Mountains, but with not the high number of points he was perhaps hoping for. Clock still ticking away, 2:28, 2:30 now, and Moncoutier is deciding to take that third place. Maybe he's still thinking he could have a real go at the Tour de France when we get to the Alps. Plenty of climbs there to reverse the situation.
Well, I don't think Garate is too keen on that, because he just looked across at David Moncoutier and said, mate, I've just done all the pacemaking here. You're not going to sneak 32 points away from me.
So Garate comes over the top of Voigtler, may have even picked Moncoutier as well. One thing's for sure, he got swept away there. About 7th it would be for Igor Martinez over the climb.
Well, now they're starting the tricky part of the descent, but what is pretty tough for these bike riders this afternoon is they're facing up to 70 kilometers to go from the summit.
4:47 to the main field. There they are, climbing as a group, indicating the pace has been good, steady tempo, but it hasn't hurt anybody of note down there. They're still all in that field. So because of the 70-kilometer ride to the finish, the climb of the Tourmalet has really been neutralized by all of the leaders of the Tour de France.
I feel a little bit sorry for this young man. 21 years of age, we talked about him. Philly rode across the gap to make contact with that group of riders, and then all of a sudden, once we got to the steep part of the climb, he got left behind. A little bit of youthful enthusiasm because it's his first participation in the Tour de France, and now he's actually paying for that effort.
Well, he's going to go over the top in 11th place if they don't pick him up, of course. Over the top of the Col de Tourmalet. Now, let's see. Come on, Maxime. It's not too front. Over the top, you'll be fine.
Well, Martinez...
7 points, was that all he got?
No, he went over the top in 7th place. He got himself 16 points, so he's still got a pretty big advantage in the King of the Mountains classification. So that's a good one for Spain this afternoon.
Yes, and there's plenty of Spanish here, so they don't know it, but they're cheering a new leader in the King of the Mountains from Spain today. Maxime can't wait for the top of this climb.
No, he's learning just how tough the Col de Tourmalet is. Looking way back down into the distance there, that's the Valley of Compiègne that we're leaving behind us, and now we're about to descend into the Valley of the Barège.
Just checking over his shoulder, no reason to do that, except that he's just crossed in 11th place. Time to put the zip up and keep the chill air out now. Sometimes you might see them grab a newspaper to just put underneath the jersey to keep the wind off the chest. There's a teammate, and that's Brice Pelliu, who's just come over, so he'll be in about 12th place.
Brad Wiggins going over in second or third position. The yellow jersey not put under any pressure at all here this afternoon, Phil, and we haven't seen any battle done on the slopes of the Col de Tourmalet, and I am a little bit surprised after the way they raced yesterday over the final climb of the day, the Col d'Agnès.
Yes, it's Pelazzotti, Federico Garatti, Voigtler, Moncucci. They were the first 5 over the top. But Igor Martinez has increased his lead in the King of the Mountain. He will have 78 points now. Overnight leader Christophe Kern 59, and Franco Pelazzotti comes from nowhere into 3rd place with 55 points. We're looking here at the beautiful Pic du Midi de Bigorre, which is the real high spot of the Pyrenees around this part of the world. Absolutely stunningly beautiful, especially today in this weather. So there they are. We've now started our descent of the Col de Tourmalet, 70 kilometers from the finish. That's the end of our Chrysler half-hour commercial-free segment. So we'll take a break now. Now it's going to be a big chase off the mountain to find out who'll win the stage into Tarbes. See you in a moment. You can't miss. Despite being shorter than some of the other mountain stages, this might be the toughest pure climbing day in the Tour. I'm talking about the ride to Le Grand Bornand. It's where the King of the Mountains will have to come out and play. It's a toughie, and I think it's where the GC hopefuls will and must attack. Visit bicycling.com, exclusive daily Tour commentary, analysis from cycling's biggest names, interactive stage maps, and more. Well, we're on the way down the Col de Tourmalet. Our computer is reporting a crash to Laurens ten Dam. We've seen nothing. We hope it's not true. One thing's for sure now, though. The Maillot Jaune on the shoulders of Rinaldo Nocentini is heading to the finish, and I think it's safe. It's only 8 seconds, remember, over Lance Armstrong, 6 over Alberto Contador, but they won't attack him now because the flat road's all over the way to the finish, and I think that's the way Astana clearly wanted it. They didn't want to take up the responsibility of having to defend the lead for either Contador or Lance Armstrong. Perfect scenario. Armstrong now is enjoying the descent. That's him seeing the way down first. This is Jens Voigt. Is he returning to the side of Lance? He is. So Jens will just join in at the back now. Armstrong looking very cool, very content after 9 days in the Tour. Well, we should go to the finish now, and the first rest day is tomorrow, and I think we'll see no change overall. You should never say that, of course, when you've still got so far to go, but it looks the way it will go as our helicopter zips in and out the picture, giving the VIPs the best position. Look at Lance. Paul, he's never been away, has he? Well, 2005, look at him. It's just like seeing him again.
Well, he's just enjoying it and riding in the front so he can pick his own lines around the corner.
Well, we're looking now at the images of the riders on Astana as they descend at around about 80 kilometers an hour off the mountain. The yellow jersey is here of race leader Nocentini. Contador is here. Armstrong is here. This will go to the finish in this order, I think, now.
Yes, putting that speed into old money. That's 50 to 55 miles an hour down this descent. This is Haimar Zubeldia. The race radio, Phil, has just cracked and given confirmation that Laurens ten Dam, who was in that group of 8 riders, has crashed on the descent, but it hasn't given any information on how he is.
Well, we've never seen the situation at all as we continue the descent, so let's hope that he's okay. As it's a very, very technical descent at the top. As you can see now, these long straight roads bringing us off the contours of the region gives the riders a real chance to fly. Remember, the group is still away, thinning out a little bit, but we still have the 2 leaders, and we're joining them now. Now, if they get off the bottom, I think their only fear of being caught will be from those through riders chasing behind. There are 7 riders chasing behind now because we've lost Laurens ten Dam. So if 7 gets up to these 2, that'll give 9 men to race for the finish for the first prize of the day.
It's going to be a hard chase, though, Phil, because they've got to bridge a 3-minute gap. The two leaders climbed the Col de Tourmalet almost a minute faster than the yellow jersey group, and that is a serious indication that there was no battle done on the Tourmalet by the overall contenders. I think we're going to have to wait now for 4 or 5 days before we see the next part of this story to unfold.
Well, just looking at Thomas Voigtler at the back, he came up to that group on the way up, and he might well join the leaders and his teammate on the way down here. Could be an interesting thing. Voigtler, 2-stage wins in the Tour de France. Unthinkable, no? What a lovely part of the Pyrenees this is. Lucky people work up there to weather centre right on the top. Must be one terrific view. That's our Trek aerial view today, and of course if you're watching in HD you'll appreciate it better than most, I'm sure. The riders on the way down the Col de Tourmalet. Oh, we've caught up with Laurens ten Dam. Oh boy, he really did crash, didn't he? But he looks okay, but he must have really gone down the side of the sand here. Anyway, he's caught in no man's land just at the moment. He's about half a minute behind the riders he crashed up from the Seine. I don't know how he's done that unless he really is catching up, but that is amazing. He looks quite okay. I don't think he'll wear that jersey the day after tomorrow, though. I think they'll give him a new strip. Let's have a look at the leaders now. Franco Pelazzotti heading on as we continue down. This will be into the town of Esther, and this is Luz Saint-Sauveur, in fact, as they come through. Right, well, as we look at Franco Pelazzotti, they rides at Saint-Sauveur. It's a lovely mountain town, this. It's low down, but if you go out in a different direction, you can climb Luz Ardiden, and that's where Lance Armstrong was brought down by a spectator a few years ago.
And it's not too far away to a little bit further up there. You go to Pla d'Adet, where George Hincapie got himself a victory too.
It's all here in the Pyrenees. Armstrong's team decided to come to the front to keep an eye on proceedings now. They're willing to do a little bit of work here. They did allow all the teammates of AG2R looking after Noscentini there, but now they decided to assume control. Down below us, the town of Luz Saint-Sauveur, and that's the peloton now. It is getting bigger as the riders come descending the Col de Tourmalet and latching on to the big pack. Laurens ten Dam, who fell, is still ahead of them. His jersey's ripped to shreds and his arm and knee are bleeding, but he's still going well. So as we continue to see all of the areas, this is the Santa Marie Castle here, built by the Count of Bigorre. Well, we've seen the Pic du Midi de Bigorre. Now we're seeing Armstrong.
As if they'd managed to get over the top of the Col de Tourmalet within 5 minutes of the main peloton.
No, I completely agree, but we need a good pan of the peloton with the camera now to see what's happening, because the race radio isn't confirming who's where. Except they are saying that quite a way back is Thor Hushovd and Christoph Kern riding together. So I don't know where they are either. 4:30 the gap just now on the Maillot Jaune. 43.9 kilometres left to ride or so. The two leaders are out there. For some reason, they're being driven by Team Columbia HTC. So we'll just keep an eye on things. All of the leaders of the Tour are now safely in that peloton, as they have been all day. They really haven't raced today at their standards. There is the hapless Laurens ten Dam, and he's done well. But he's going to hang on to this group, I hope, as well.
Well, I'll tell you one thing as we look here at the scathed rider from Holland, Laurens ten Dam. If Team Columbia High Road HTC pull this group all back together, they may well be offering the possibility of a victory to Rojas, because Rojas is sitting at the back of the group.
He would be the big one, yes. Well, this is the team Case Depart, and they've got Rojas on there. He showed us yesterday he could sweep up in the sprint. He got 5th, best of the rest yesterday. So we'll see, because that's every reason to ride. 2 days in a row, Case Depart. That'll make good reading in Spain, wouldn't it? Yesterday, when he won, he dedicated that victory to his late brother, who sadly died in a road accident. We are looking now at a possibility of 2 Case Depart wins in a row here, because look at this, the men in black from Spain are driving because they have a sprinter here who could deliver if they can win and catch everybody else up front. Well, there's the sweep up as they now get put back into the bunch, and they're all settling down now to chase 2 riders versus the rest of the Tour de France. Looking at the computer here, Rémi Porriol's 109 beats per minute. He's almost calmed down, hasn't he?
Calm down, and if you can sit in the main field, you can float around and recuperate on a stage like this. The fact that Rabobank are very nervously at the front end of the main field, Phil, is also an indication that probably Oscar Freire did recuperate and get himself into this bunch.
Just look at this, Paul. Jens Voigt, who we saw in the front all day long, dropped on the taller, his face a picture of pain, gets caught by the peloton, he's with them, he's now gone back to collect all the water bottles.
He's a great rider and a real champion and a good spokesperson as well for the sport of professional cycling. And there's a big debate going on at the moment about whether or not the race radio should be banned for a couple of stages in the Tour de France. And I thought Jens Voigt was quite humorous because they said, you know, we're banning the races, we're banning the radios for the day, so Jens Voigt's responsible. Why don't we have a stage when we ban the helmets as well?
Good point. No answer to that. As we now see the riders coming through here, 58% of the work being done by the men in black now, the Caisse d'Epargne. Clearly they've checked out who is in the group and measured up against their man, Rochas. There's still a difficult chase to catch two riders who are still riding a long way in front, but time is just about on their side.
Well, there are a number of teams who are concerned about setting the pace at the front. Rabobank is one of those teams. Caisse d'Epargne is another of those teams. They're obviously doing it for their man Jose Rochas as they keep the pace nice and high. They're pretty much on the right recipe to pull those riders back into the fold, as AG Tuara pretty much prepared as well to assist in the pace making.
38 to go. Looking at Juan Manuel Garate on the front here of what is now the peloton, because the chasers have all merged with the exception of the two boys out front, Pelazzotti and Fedrigo. At 38 kilometers left to go, they've got a diminishing lead here of 3 minutes 46 seconds, and it looks as though Caisse d'Epargne believe that in Rochas they have the winner today.
And that's why they've come to the front, but there are other teams who are pretty keen to do that as well.
As we're looking now at the riders, don't forget about our Nike Chalkbot, because you can get these on the road if you just contact by going to weareyellow.com. Give us your message and it could happen to be put on the road here of the route of the Tour de France. That's weareyellow.com is where you go for our Chalkbot Nike slogans on the road. Let's have a look then. There was a Columbia rider looking for his team car there. Didn't quite look up fast enough to see him. Let's check in again with Brian Home with Team Columbia.
3 minutes 40. Then everybody has to be in the front, and George, he has to try to attack. Okay, everybody stay at the front and George attack the last kilometer. Very tricky, much in the corners.
So the plan is to get everybody up front and try and get a man away in the closing kilometre to the line. By the sound of it, well, that could likely be Kim Kirkham. But first of all, but you know, I'm not sure that Brian has realised there's two riders. He only ever spoke of 7 chases, which are caught, but these two riders are still clear. And he must know that these two riders are still clear. He doesn't mention them. So they've got to bring back these two first. Pelazzotti continues to push on here. He'll start to feel he's been in positions like this before in big-time bike races. So he will keep at it. Pierre Fedrigo, former champion of France, as the red, white and blue edges to his cuffs and shorts tell us. As these two continue to race on now towards the finish. This is Lo Balignas, 35 kilometers out. Well, we'll take a break now. But who is going to win? Are they going to get caught? Bank? And I don't see the figure of Mark Cavendish. I'm wondering if they're trying to launch Tony Martin here, who's having a terrific tour in the white jersey competition, and get themselves what would be a pretty surprise stage win, but brilliant tactics to have done it. They're driving on now. We're inside that 20 miles or 32 kilometers. Rabobank, despite having the bashed around Laurens ten Dam, have now taken over the run themselves.
They're looking for something to save their Tour de France, because the man they expected to be a challenger for the overall victory, Denny Mencher, Phil, is a long way down in the standings. He's plummeted down to 28th place overall, and he's looking for 5 minutes. Carlos Sastre sitting at the back of the group there, surrounded by a couple of teammates. He's taking a little bit of a risk there, being so far back, especially when you look at the pressure at the front.
Good pacemaking now, and these are obviously the three teams who think they've got the men to finish the day off. There's a lot of Team Columbia HTC riders now got themselves into the third rankings on the peloton. But good hard riding being done by Juan Manuel Garate here on the front of the peloton. The gap is down to 2:47 and closing quickly.
Well, I'm almost 99% certain, Phil, that Oscar Freire must be in this group. That's the only reason why Team Rabobank would be riding at the front end of the pack like this. We've seen Jose Rojas, and he is a very good sprinter, and that's why Kay Stepani in the black and red jerseys are very keen to whip up the pace.
Well, as the chase continues here, and a lot of sprinters are beginning to lick their lips, let me remind you about our Cadillac Ride of Your Life sweepstakes. You log on to Versys.com/Ride of Your Life to play the game. The keyword you will need today is Cervelo, and a chance to be with us on the 2010 Tour de France or riding a Cervelo S2 bicycle. You need the name Cervelo to log on today. Concentration on these two. They won't believe this. He's asking, where are you? Come and give me a hand here. The two have been friends now for a long way, but they can't fall out yet. They need each other as they continue to take turns now. About a couple of 100 yards or meters they'll do, and then they'll swing off. Pierrick Fedrigo as they continue to race towards the finish, and it is Pelazzotti on his back wheel. Well, these two at the moment can only dream of what might be in the Tour de France today. Close, but I think they're going to do it.
Well, they're inside of 2 kilometers to go. They've still got around about 40 seconds. There was only one rider left at the front, Phil, there for Kay Stepani. It was Luis Leon Sanchez round the town square in Tarbes. They are witnessing a very special effort by these two men.
I don't know why we've never come back here to finish a race since 1951, because the crowd has turned out in their thousands. 2 kilometers for the peloton, no gain, 38 seconds, it's all over. It is going to be one of these two riders take it. Virtually the day-long breakaway by these two men. And the Frenchman at the back has got pole position now. We're looking for the kilometer.
Pelazzotti swinging off, looks across at Fedrigo. They've brought all of the cars out of the gap because the referees know how quickly that gap can be closed in the final kilometer of a race. But it's still locked in at 2 kilometers to go. It was 40 seconds. That is what they've been dreaming about, Phil, since they left the mountains. There is the red kite, the Flamme Rouge, 1,000 meters to go.
And you can see why I don't think the organisers were expecting a big bunch sprint today. The roads are narrow here. It's going to be difficult for the chase now. Well, this is a day in the Tour de France when we want a dead heat. 2 riders over the line first. It won't happen.
Well, it's not going to happen. Somebody's going to win, and now Pelazzotti has decided he doesn't want to come to the front anymore. He wants to take the wheel of Pierrick Fedrigo. He's going to make the Frenchman lead out the sprint. It is oh so difficult to judge a sprint when there's only 2 of you at the front end of the race, especially when you've really worked hard together over all of these kilometers. Pelazzotti, he's dreaming of a win in the Tour de France, Phil, after having 3 stage victories at the Giro d'Italia.
Well, this is going to be, I think, the way Fedrigo is leading out here. Pelazzotti does have a good sprint. Who knows what's left in the tank, though, after a ride through the Pyrenees. He's going to have to lead from the front. The Frenchman, he was looking the wrong way. Pelazzotti has gone up the inside. I don't think Fedrigo will have it, but they go round. Advantage Pelazzotti on the bend. It's a sharp, sweeping right-hander. Now the Frenchman, has he got the strength to come out of the slipstream of Franco Pelazzotti? Well, this is the year of the French in the Tour de France, and I think he might. He comes to the line, he's taken it. I don't believe this. 3 stage wins, and we're only on day 9 of the Tour de France. It is fantastic.
That's a brilliant performance by the French. This really has been their tour this year, and this is a pretty dodgy corner here, a sketchy corner, and I tell you what, Pelazzotti had read the book, but he couldn't get it quite right. Swinging round the corner there, this looks like Velits.
Well, Peter Velits it might be, or is it Cholikers? Now, this is Velits the way he's swinging his bike, but I still, Sergei Ivanov trying. Here comes Oscar Freire on the right. Sergei Ivanov of Russia, as he's all over the road. He might get disqualified for that, but I think it was Oscar. No, it's not Oscar Freire who's come over the line, I don't think. It's one of the other riders from Rabobank.
Well, I think it was Oscar Freire.
Was it Oscar Freire? It was only a small rider left on the team. I think it was Oscar Freire. He had the bands of the world champion on his sleeve. There's nobody else in that group who's been a former world champion. But there is the winner today. Pieric Fedrigo has brought the Tour de France to its first rest day, and I think it's the first time for years and years they've had 3 wins on the way.
Jean-René Bernadotte, former yellow jersey in the Tour, just over on the left-hand side, and he's the team manager who so far this year has got 2 stage victories with his team, to add to that one by Thomas Voeckler a couple of days ago. He's going to be a very happy chappy, I should think, tonight on the plane.
It was his birthday on Voeckler's. Now he's had his 2nd birthday in a week. Now the overall situation will remain unchanged, and Lance Armstrong in his comeback here brings this race to his rest day, 8 seconds away from the yellow jersey. I think that's a good thing. He doesn't want the pressure of leading the Tour yet. Ahead of him is his own teammate by 2 seconds, Contador, and of course the yellow stays on the Italian for the moment at least, Rinaldo Nocentini. This has been an extraordinary race in these first 9 days. So just look at the sprint here as it comes through, because I think that might have been Gerald Cholik, but the way he slung his bike around, it was more the riding style of the youngster on the Czech Republic. That would be the Slovenian team rather, and that would be Peter Velic, who placed well yesterday in the sprint after a mountain stage. There's only one man sprints like that, and that is Oscar Freire. Sergei Ivanov coming up. He might just have sneaked the next place. I don't know about that. A little bit of practice out in the field here, so you see, not everybody's interested in the finish of the Tour de France, but he's missed out on a very good stage finish there. I'm glad they survived. I hope you all are too. But I'm very surprised the winner was Fedrigo of France. But boy, he read it well, deserves it. Coming up, all of the highlights, the standings and the page win. Pelazzotti 2nd, 34 seconds Freire, Ivanov and Peter Velic in that order. See if we can show you a few more riders in the result now. This is the official result today. Rojas, he turned off when he wasn't racing for first place, so he finished 6th. He was 5th yesterday. The Belgian sprinter on silence, Lotto van Avermaet 7th. The top 10 completed by a very boosted Nicolas Roche here. Christophe Mervel in 12th, Le Mervel actually, and the top 15 by Brice Felu, who was the winner at Arcolis. George Hincapie always mixed it. He was up there in 16th place, Cloden in 17th. The top 20 completed by Mikel Astalosa, who was in the early move today, all given the same time, and that's the important thing. Okay, well, let's get down to the finishing line now. Pick up Robbie Ventura, who's talking with Andy Schleck. Very relieved, I would think.
Andy, a very unopportune flat for you. Can you tell us how you got back into the peloton and what caused the flat?
Well, I don't know what it caused, but it was just, I think it's the worst place in our race you can get the flat. That's it was like 4Ks to go, you know. In the 3Ks line, you got the same time, so I had no really choice, and I just I thought to go maybe to the 3Ks and then change. So I was within the limit, but it wasn't possible. You know, you cannot go over a roundabout when you have a flat tire. So I had to change the bike, and then I chased back. I had the team who waited for me, and I mean that just then. Yeah, I did my sprint from 4 to 3, and then I just hanging in the wheels.
With the rest day coming up tomorrow, how do you feel the team performed in the Pyrenees, and did you think the racing was what you thought it would be up these mountains?
Yeah, more or less. I didn't expect myself to be 100% the first week of the Tour. I planned to be good the last week, but I feel really good already, and then I hope I can improve a little bit, and then hopefully drop some of the guys the last week.
Thanks, Andy.
Well, what a lovely man he is. Yes, if he'd have pumped it inside 3K, he would have been given the same time. He could have pedalled home when he felt like it. Big chase for Andy Schleck, but he saved the day. It would not be nice to have lost a few seconds there. Crucial days to come in the Tour de France.